Chapter 1. When Nicholas, usually composed, saw the trending topic about Crush's divorce, he accidentally shattered a glass. Chloe said nothing, cleaned up the fragments, and took out the trash. What she was discarding wasn't just the broken glass, but Nicholas as well. Chloe, are you really sure you want to divorce Nicholas? Chloe signed her name on the divorce agreement. I'm sure. Agent Rita looked at her calm expression but couldn't help feeling a sudden urge to cry, moved by all that Chloe had given up over these 5 years of marriage. She said indignantly, "Good riddance to the divorce. You've been secretly married for 5 years, and you've endured 5 years of cyberbullying from Nicholas's fans. No wonder you can only get roles in short dramas now. Maybe Nicholas is jinxing you." After venting, she asked, "For the divorce, do you want me to talk to Nicholas beforehand?" "No need." Chloe shook her head, her expression calm. From the beginning, it was her who loved Nicholas unilaterally. Now, she could just as unilaterally take back that love. Seeing that her decision was final, Rita said no more. "Let's not dwell on this. Focus on preparing for the variety show. Let's aim to win actors. Please take your places and make a spectacular comeback." As she spoke, her worry resurfaced. Nicholas is one of the judges. If you ask for a divorce, won't he make things difficult for you? Chloe gave a faint smile. He won't. After all, Nicholas never made exceptions for anyone. Even if she were his wife, it would be no different. But at that moment, Chloe's mobile phone buzzed with a notification from INS. Chloe opened INS and saw that the official account of actors, "Please take your places," after announcing all the cast members, had posted an additional official announcement about one actor. "Welcome Best Actress Katarina to actors. Please take your places." After 5 years of silence, she returns when the time is right. Soon after, Katarina quickly reposted and commented, "It's never too late for a fresh start. Ready and waiting." This news quickly shot up the trending topics. Chloe opened the production team's Instagram comments section, where a flood of messages caught her eye. Shocking! Nicholas's rumored girlfriend Chloe and his ex-girlfriend Katarina are both on the same variety show. This is going to be interesting. Chloe worthy of being compared to Nicholas and Katarina? She's an 18th tier has-been acting in trash short dramas. The handsome guy and beautiful girl are born to be the perfect couple. To those cheap women who only stir up gossip, please stay far away. Chloe browsed through the mocking and sarcastic comments from netizens with an impassive expression. In truth, she was already used to it. For her, this had long become routine. In the 5 years since marrying Nicholas, such online abuse hadn't ceased for a single day. Even though their marriage was secret, there is no wall without cracks. Most of Nicholas's major fans already knew about it. It is said that fangirls hate the real wife the most. So, under their influence, Chloe became the person Nicholas's fans loathed the most. Fueled by the propaganda of millions of fans, Chloe became the entertainment industry's most shameless and scheming woman, always clinging to Nicholas. Nicholas's fans even created a topic called "When Will Chloe Just Die?" with hundreds of thousands checking in daily to curse her. The escalating online harassment turned Chloe from a newly debuted actress who had won that year's Best Newcomer award into an 18th tier celebrity entangled in scandals, relegated to acting only in short dramas. Throughout it all, Nicholas never once spoke up for her. Thinking of this, Chloe lowered her eyes, a self-mocking smile curling at the corner of her lips. Just as she was about to turn off her mobile phone screen, a notification popped up on her Instagram. "Your close friend at Nicholas has just posted a tweet. Go check it out." Chloe instinctively tapped on the notification. She saw that Nicholas's Instagram account, which contained nothing but business posts, had reposted Katarina's post and commented, "Welcome to Set Off Again, my eternal leading lady." Chapter 2. The car jolted sharply, and Chloe's mobile phone slipped to the floor. With a loud thud, it felt like a heavy drum beating against her chest. Several seconds passed before she realized what had happened and slowly picked up the mobile phone. The power of a top star was immense. This post quickly surpassed 10,000 reposts. Nicholas's fans also lined up to flood the hashtag Katarina. Welcome to Set Off Again, hashtag. After 5 years away from the spotlight, a single post on INS was enough to generate a buzz Chloe hadn't managed to achieve in all that time, and all of it was just a small gift from Chloe's husband to Katarina. The car drove steadily home, and Chloe remained silent the entire way. When she entered holding the divorce agreement, she saw Nicholas sitting on the sofa, watching a movie. His handsome face was usually emotionless, his thin lips pressed into a sharp curve, long, thick lashes shading ink-black eyes that held a trace of coldness. "You're back?" Even when he glanced at Chloe, there was no trace of warmth in his eyes. Chloe pressed her lips together, concealing the tangled emotions within. I just signed the variety show contract." She instinctively slipped the divorce agreement behind her, but Nicholas showed no sign of noticing her. After a brief greeting, he turned his gaze away. Chloe's breath caught slightly as she added, "I thought only the 32 of us signed the contract, but I didn't expect Katerina to be joining as well." She spoke without much thought. To her surprise, Nicholas continued, "Katerina joined the show on my recommendation." Chloe suddenly froze, staring at him in disbelief. Nicholas met her gaze calmly, his dark eyes growing even more profound. "A female star's comeback is never easy. This is already the best project Katerina can access right now." Chloe's throat felt unbearably dry. After a long pause, she finally asked, "You knew I went first, yet you still recommended her to the production team?" Nicholas looked momentarily surprised but quickly replied without a change in expression, "I don't think you can win. Whether Katerina participates or not shouldn't affect you." Nicholas's words pierced Chloe's heart. She was left speechless, her chest aching with emptiness. Yes, in Nicholas's heart, she would never measure up to Katerina. Back then, the three of them were classmates at the drama academy. Chloe liked Nicholas, but Nicholas only had eyes for Katerina, so she hid her feelings, willingly becoming Nicholas's closest friend. After graduation, Nicholas and Katerina rose to fame overnight thanks to a film, becoming the golden couple in everyone's eyes. She sincerely wished them well, believing that her one-sided love had finally come to an end. However, not long after, Katerina chose to leave the entertainment industry and enter an arranged marriage. She was originally a princess of Beijing's social circle, merely dabbling in the entertainment industry for amusement, never truly intending a future with Nicholas. But Nicholas was devastated by the blow and couldn't pull himself together. Chloe couldn't just leave him. She stayed by his side day and night, until the day he regained his strength and proposed to her again. Chloe believed Nicholas had fallen in love with her too, but after 5 years of marriage, she finally understood Katerina had always been Nicholas's unspoken crush. There was always a locked drawer in Nicholas's study. Whenever Nicholas got drunk, the only name he'd let slip was Katerina's nickname. In a compartment of Nicholas's wallet was the promotional poster of the first film he and Katerina made together, something he treasured for 5 years. "By the way, I found your ring." Chloe suddenly pulled a man's couple ring out of her pocket. It was the wedding ring she had given Nicholas years ago. The ring had gone missing a few days ago, and someone as emotionally indifferent as Nicholas had stubbornly searched all night. It wasn't until yesterday that Chloe found it in the bathroom. Nicholas's body stiffened suddenly. Then he took the ring and said, "Thank you." Chloe nodded slightly, her expression neutral, as if she were unaware that on the inside of the ring, Nicholas had personally engraved Katerina's name. What he feared losing was never her, but Katerina. Chloe thought. Her final hope for Nicholas likely vanished the moment she found the ring. Back in the bedroom, Chloe opened her mobile phone and navigated to the chat with the director of the actors. "Please take your places, production team. As long as you're willing to cooperate in our publicity, the platform will give you an S-grade lead role in a film, but the filming conditions are harsh. It requires a year of secluded shooting in the countryside." Chloe didn't agree at the time. Her heart remained hesitant. A whole year without exposure felt, to her, like putting everything on the line. But now, she had nothing left to lose. Chloe typed without hesitation and pressed send. "I agree." Chapter 3. The next day was the first recording of actors. "Please take your places." Chloe got up early to prepare Nicholas's outfit for the day. She had spent the past 5 years like this. Before she even realized something was wrong, she had already finished all the preparations. At exactly 9, Nicholas came out of the bedroom on time. He habitually changed clothes and coldly said to Chloe as he passed by, "I'm heading to the set," leaving her with only his cold back. They were clearly there to film a show, yet the two had to part ways. having shared the same bed for 5 years. Who could have guessed Chloe and Nicholas were married? Chloe offered a bitter smile. She quickly tidied herself up and took a taxi to the recording studio. Chloe arrived at the backstage makeup room, where the production team's makeup artist immediately began her work. Yet halfway through applying the makeup, the artist abandoned her, shamelessly fawning over someone who had just entered. "Sister Katerina, you're here." Chloe froze. She was accustomed to the backstabbing flattery in the industry, but being deserted halfway through makeup was a first. Chloe slowly turned and met the newcomer's gaze. The 5 years of marriage had left no mark on Katerina's face. She was still the same, delicate as a narcissus flower. Long time no see. Chloe's heart was a knot of complicated feelings. Katerina, however, brushed past her and walked toward the makeup table. Her tone sharp. "I remember the production team arranged a single dressing room for me. So how is it that now anyone and everyone can just come in? I don't recall that our show even features short drama actors." Chloe clenched her fist abruptly. The makeup artist hurried over, lowering her voice to warn Chloe. "If you don't leave now, the person behind him is Nicholas. As a short drama actor, you really can't afford to offend him." Chloe ignored the makeup artist and looked at Katerina with quiet resolve. "Short drama actors are still actors, Katerina. See you on stage later." With that, she stood up and left without hesitation. No one would do her makeup, so she simply went on stage barefaced. It was the actor's initial audition today. Chloe and 31 other actors waited backstage for 2 hours before Katerina, fully made up and dressed, showed up fashionably late. The show has finally begun filming officially. Nicholas appeared from the side of the stage. His height of 188 meters was strikingly imposing. His tailored suit only enhanced his distinguished presence. A faint silver chain was visible around his neck, and only Chloe knew that at its end hung a ring engraved with Katerina's name. Nicholas took the microphone, gave a brief self-introduction, and immediately received warm applause from everyone present. After all, he was by far the biggest star in the room. Nicholas's gaze drifted over the faces of the contestants. When it landed on Chloe, he looked away after barely a second, as if she were a stranger, but only when he saw Katerina did a faint smile appear in his eyes. And he gently said, "Katerina, I'm really looking forward to your performance today." The moment he said that, everyone sensed the unmistakable favoritism in his tone. Chloe lowered her eyes, unwilling to look any further. The audition started immediately, and soon it was Chloe's turn. She had prepared a short monologue for today. It was the day a blind woman regained her sight, only for her to suddenly realize that the kind person who had donated her corneas after passing away was, in fact, her lover. This scene is challenging, with a blend of complex emotions intertwined, making it easy to overact if not handled delicately. Yet Chloe portrayed it brilliantly. By the end, she even received warm applause from the actors present. The judges all gave an A rating. If Nicholas also gives her an A, she will become the first actor to advance with straight A's. And at the premiere is not only a great honor but also grants priority in selecting roles during the subsequent stages. With this thought, Chloe couldn't help but hold her breath, looking towards Nicholas with anticipation. But she only saw Nicholas slightly furrow his brows. His magnetic voice carried through the microphone in his hand, reaching everyone's ears. "Chloe, your technique is flawless, but that also reveals your greatest flaw: you lack emotion." He said this, then pressed the button on the table without hesitation. "So, your rating from me is B." For a moment, the entire room fell silent. Then the scattered applause slowly resumed. Chloe stood frozen for a long moment before she responded with a polite bow. "Thank you, Teacher Nicholas." She stepped off the stage in a daze. The staff immediately took her to the backup dressing room and asked, "Chloe, do you think Teacher Nicholas's evaluation was fair?" At that moment, Chloe was lost in thought. But in the end, she responded cautiously, "Everyone has different tastes. Not everyone will appreciate my performance. Perhaps this time, I simply didn't move Teacher Nicholas, and I understand. I will continue to work hard to refine my acting skills." After finishing in the backup dressing room, Chloe stepped out, only to suddenly hear warm applause from the front desk. She stood in the shadows at the foot of the stage, looking up, bathed in spotlight. Nicholas smiled as he looked at Katerina standing center stage. He said, "Katerina, Congratulations on the premiere. Only then did Chloe suddenly realize. It turned out Nicholas only gave himself B because he wanted to give the premiere to Katerina, nothing more. Chapter 4. Nicholas's favoritism was always blatant. At that moment, Chloe felt as if her heart had been sunk into the sea, cold and suffocating. The program recording ended late in the evening. Chloe stood at the entrance of the TV station. The ride-hailing app on her phone kept showing no cars nearby. She sighed deeply. Ever since she stopped getting roles, the company had more or less left her to her own devices. Without an assistant and with her manager Rita always busy, she mostly took taxis to the sets by herself. Just as she was about to call Rita, Katerina's voice suddenly came from behind. Chloe, why haven't you left yet? Chloe turned her head. She saw Katerina looking at her with a warm smile, her expression unusually gentle. Looking closer, the man beside Katerina, wearing a baseball cap and mask, was none other than Nicholas, who nodded lightly at Chloe. Chloe's gaze lingered on Nicholas for only a moment before she replied to Katerina. It's hard to get a taxi here. I need to wait a little longer. Katerina inhaled softly, feigning surprise. Your company doesn't even provide you a car? What are you going to do? Nicholas and I have plans to go out for Japanese cuisine. Otherwise, I could give you a ride. Chloe clenched her fist and refused outright. No need. Why don't you come with us for Japanese cuisine? Katerina interrupted but quickly covered her mouth, her face full of apology. I completely forgot, you don't eat Japanese cuisine. Well, there's nothing we can do then, right, Nicholas? Katerina's idle chatter only irritated Chloe further. Unable to stay any longer, she said, I'll leave first. You two enjoy yourselves. Only after turning away did she hear Nicholas's cold, distant voice. Let's go, Katerina. Don't waste time here. Chloe hesitated in her steps. Then she slowly moved forward again, dialing Rita's number. The call was answered after a long silence. She had barely said a few words. Sis, can you call a car to pick me up? The next moment, Nicholas's car suddenly sped past her. Chloe glanced instinctively through the half-open car window. She caught only Nicholas's profile. He stared straight ahead, as if she were a stranger, leaving her behind and driving off with Katerina. In that instant, Chloe's throat felt as if it had been stuffed with cotton. After a long pause, she finally answered hoarsely, I can't get a cab home. By the time Rita arrived, Chloe had already settled her emotions. Just as she got in the car, she heard Rita ask with concern, how was the program recording? When's the next session? Chloe replied in turn, it was fine. 3 days from now. They're filming the group draw for the competition. No sooner had she finished speaking than she saw Rita hesitate, as if wanting to ask something but then holding back. Nicholas, Chloe, unwilling to mention him again, cut her off immediately. Has the director sent over the script for Song of Longing? Rita let out a soft sigh. She didn't mention Nicholas. Just the thought of the short drama brought another sigh. Maybe we should just drop Song of Longing. The whole team is really too weak. The male lead is a newcomer to the entertainment industry who just returned from abroad. The director was previously a medical student, and his only credit is a commercial. The more she spoke, the more frustrated she became with your acting skills. If you had a good script, who knows how many Best Actress awards you'd have won by now. Why bother with short dramas? Chloe, however, disagreed. Speaking earnestly, Rita, short dramas are still dramas. Besides, I enjoy acting. As long as the script is good, why should I care about those things? In her view, the script of Song of Longing was in no way inferior to those so-called S+ big productions. Song of Longing tells the story of a modern woman who travels back to ancient times, meets the male lead historically labeled a tyrant, and discovers he is completely different from how history portrays him. As time went on and feelings grew, the female lead resolved to restore his reputation, only to unwittingly bring about the male lead's destined fate. The moment Chloe received the script, she resolved to make the film. Rita couldn't convince her, so she reluctantly agreed. By the time Chloe got home, it was already late at night. Opening the door, she was met with complete darkness. As expected, Nicholas hadn't come home. Chloe stifled the faint bitterness in her heart and sat on the sofa, waiting for him for a long while. Nicholas still hadn't returned. nor had he made a single call. Chloe sat there in a daze, her eyes suddenly filling with tears. Even if Nicholas married her out of gratitude, living together day and night, no matter how cold-hearted someone is, there should be some warmth to soften them. In truth, she never expected someone as cold-hearted as Nicholas to treat his wife with the warmth other men might. But at the very least, he shouldn't have pulled her into a marriage while still having another woman in his heart. Chloe closed her eyes painfully, only opening them after a long moment. She got up to freshen up when suddenly her mobile phone buzzed. She picked up the phone and unlocked it, only to see a trending topic on INS marked explosive. Katerina cheated. Late at night, she entered a hotel with Nicholas and didn't leave for 3 hours. Chapter 5. Chloe suddenly froze. She stared at the photo released by the paparazzi. In it, Katerina wore Nicholas's coat and a baseball cap, and with Nicholas's support, they walked intimately into the hotel together. Her heart felt as if it had been pierced in that instant. She kept watching it, torturing herself over and over again, until Katerina posted the latest clarification on Instagram. It read simply, "I didn't have an affair because I had already divorced." This clarification immediately went viral on Instagram. Countless promotional accounts reposted it, and both strangers and fans flooded the comments beneath, thousands of them piling up in no time. Did I see that right? Katerina actually got divorced? So Nicholas and Katerina really did get back together? My ship is real. Who gets it? My mom and dad are remarried. As my brother's biggest fan, I just want to say I'm glad the one who stayed by his side in the end is Katerina. Even though she's divorced, she's still better than Chloe. That clingy career woman. Upstairs neighbor, could you please not mention Chloe's wedding day? It's so ill-omened. Chloe couldn't bear it any longer and suddenly turned off the screen. She fought hard not to cry, but grief nearly overwhelmed her chest. She forced herself to find comfort, telling herself that this was for the best. Now that Katerina is divorced, Nicholas can pursue his true love without hesitation, and she can free herself from this unresolved marriage to strive for the future she wants. 2 birds with 1 stone, isn't it? But the redness in her eyes lingered until she fell asleep. The next day, Chloe was composed, showing no sign of the previous day's distress. She went to the set of Song of Longing to discuss filming details with the director, but as soon as they met, he pulled her over to greet the male lead. Brandon, thank you all for acting in my short drama. To make this film, I even mortgaged my house. The director clenched his fist in encouragement, saying, "We absolutely have to make it a hit." Chloe quickly reassured him, "Don't worry, director. A quality drama will surely get noticed." Besides, Chloe cast a glance at Brandon, who stood quietly beside her, and thought to herself, with a male lead this handsome, impossible to look away from, this drama is bound to succeed. Thinking this, Chloe simply extended her hand toward Brandon. "Hello, I'm Chloe. Let's work hard together from now on." Brandon looked at her steadily for a moment before slowly reaching out to shake her hand. Okay. After a full day of intense filming, Chloe came home feeling drained. To her surprise, Nicholas was at home. She instinctively straightened up and said, "Aren't you about to join the crew soon? How about we have a nutritious meal today?" Nicholas nodded out of habit. "You decide." After all, she was always the one handling things at home. Chloe then plunged back into the kitchen. When she came out carrying the meal, Nicholas was still on the balcony, talking on the phone. Let's try to tone down the attention, especially the comments attacking Katerina. I don't want to see anyone insulting her online anymore. Chloe paused, then placed the nutritious meal on the table. Only then did she realize that Nicholas could see the negative comments online too. It seemed his previous silence was simply because the target of the insults was her. So he didn't care. Chloe took a deep breath, turned to the bedroom, and retrieved the divorce agreement. At that moment, Nicholas finally ended his call and sat quietly at the dining table, eating. Chloe approached him and handed the divorce papers into his hand. "I have a document that needs your signature." Chapter 6. Nicholas nodded, but his face remained expressionless. "Let's look at it after dinner." For the first time, Chloe objected. "Let's look at it now. If there's anything unsatisfactory, you can suggest changes." Nicholas was taken aback. This was the first time Chloe had been so firm with him. He hummed in acknowledgement, instinctively put down his chopsticks, and was about to open the divorce agreement when the mobile phone he had set aside suddenly rang. Chloe saw Katerina's name on the screen. Without hesitation, Nicholas picked up the phone and moved aside to answer Katerina's call. "I've already taken care of it. Don't worry." Chloe felt a swirl of emotions, silently watching Nicholas's retreating figure. After a long pause, she reminded him, "Don't forget to review the documents and sign them as soon as possible." Nicholas hesitated briefly but said nothing. Chloe could only assume he had heard her. Soon, within 2 days, the second recording of actors, "Please take your places" took place. This time, the rule was to draw lots to split the actors into groups to perform a film scene. Each actor had to enter a small room alone to draw lots for their group assignment. When Chloe reached into the box, she suddenly froze. There was only a single slip of paper inside. Chloe immediately knew the production team was stirring things up. When she came out to check, sure enough, she and Katerina had been placed in the same group. After announcing the group results, Katerina deliberately walked up to Chloe and, smiling at the camera, said, "Chloe, we haven't worked together since university. I'm really looking forward to competing with you this time." Her words felt odd. Chloe frowned slightly but only gave a soft hum in response and replied quietly, "Me too." The production team then revealed the roles available for their group, scenes from a long-past historical drama. After reading the script, Chloe took the initiative to suggest to the other actors in the group, "Why don't we each say which role we prefer? If there's any overlap, we can discuss it separately." But before anyone else could speak, Katerina confidently dismissed her. "Why make it so complicated? There are only 3 female roles in total. I'll play the lead. The senior plays the second female lead. And you can be the maidservant. Either we're your seniors, or we have higher status than you. Are you seriously going to compete with us?" Katerina looked at Chloe with a smirk that was barely a smile. It was as if simply saying no would mark her as immature. Anger flared in Chloe's chest as she prepared to reply. But just then, the other actors in the group began voicing their support for Katerina. "Katerina is right. This division is quite fair." "Don't say that. There's no big or small role. I'm sure Chloe can play the maidservant well." A chill ran through Chloe's body, but as she thought it over, she understood why. There were only a few roles, and standout ones were always rare. Besides, Katerina was clearly someone Nicholas was protecting. Who would want to cross Nicholas? Facing the camera suddenly all pointed at her in Katerina's triumphant look, Chloe forced out a single word through clenched teeth. "Okay." With a knot in her chest, Chloe left the recording studio and met Nicholas in the hallway. He passed by with his usual expression, not sparing her even a glance. Chloe had meant to just walk away, but at the moment their shoulders brushed. A sudden sharp sting pricked at the tip of her nose. She hesitated for 2 seconds, then turned around and stopped Nicholas to ask, "Have you signed it?" Nicholas looked at her, surprise evident on his face. It should be noted that in their 5 years of marriage, Chloe had never once started a conversation with him outside the home. Nicholas came back to his senses, recalled the document, and frowned. "I forgot where I threw it." A casual remark pressed heavily on Chloe's heart. More hurtful than the words "I don't love you" is "I don't care." Nicholas had never truly cared about her matters. When Nicholas saw she still didn't step aside, he grew somewhat impatient. "I'll review the contract. If you're in a hurry, print a new copy and send it over now. Or contact my assistant directly, I'll handle it all." At that moment, Chloe nearly lost control of her emotions as tears welled up. She refused to say another word to him. "Fine." Uttering only that single word, she turned and left without hesitation. Chapter 7. A few days later, the day of the first episode's broadcast arrived, which was also when the third program recording took place. This time, everyone would perform on stage in the form of a play. In their group's story, the female lead played by Katerina would confront the supporting female role played by the senior actress, who would finally wave her hand and say, "Drag that maidservant out and beat her to death." Chloe played that maidservant, who had only 3 lines. When it was their turn on stage, Katerina delivered her lines smoothly, but Chloe suddenly erupted. "Miss, what have I done wrong? Just because I was born lowly, does that mean you can so easily decide my life and death?" Chloe looked at Katerina in devastation. Her eyes filled with unwillingness. Katerina was so startled by her intensity that her mind went blank, and she even forgot her lines. Still, Chloe crawled a few steps forward, grabbed the hem of her clothes, and pleaded, "Master, for the sake of having grown up by your side, please don't kill me." Only then did Katerina remember her lines and shouted angrily, "Drag this maidservant out and beat her to death." Chloe was dragged away in despair, yet even her retreating figure tugged at the hearts of the audience. After the performance, when Chloe returned to the stage, the audience unexpectedly erupted into enthusiastic applause. Everyone regarded her with newfound admiration. Even Nicholas was speechless and gave her the highest score in this round. Congratulations to Chloe for advancing smoothly. With the host's blessing, Chloe quietly felt tears welling up in her eyes. After the recording ended, Chloe hurried home eagerly. She had planned to watch the first episode in front of the TV, but after showering, exhaustion overwhelmed her and she collapsed into bed, falling asleep immediately. The next morning, she was awakened by a call from Rita. "This is bad, Chloe. The internet is flooded with negative stories about you." Chloe was startled. She hurriedly hung up the phone and then logged onto Instagram. There, she saw the trending topic glaringly displayed. Chloe unhappy with Nicholas's initial evaluation. Bluntly states Nicholas does not understand her performance. Chloe's pupils suddenly contracted sharply. Clicking on the trending topic, she realized the production team had maliciously edited the footage. In the video, Chloe seemed disdainful when responding to Nicholas giving her a grade B. "Not everyone will appreciate my acting, and I understand that." All her previous statements had been completely cut out by the production team. This caused the audience to swarm and criticize her, especially Nicholas's fans, who shamelessly attacked her in the comments. "Understanding. My ass. Have you ever won an award? Just sitting here all arrogant. Go back to elementary school and relearn politics and ethics before you act. A short drama actor dares to be this cocky? From now on, if I watch even 1 second of your acting, I'll consider it a loss. Chloe, get out of the entertainment industry. Chloe, get out of the entertainment industry." Countless bold black words saying "Chloe, get out of the entertainment industry" flooded the N square relentlessly. Chloe stared blankly. In an instant, every unbearable emotion surged like a tide, blurring her vision. At that moment, the bedroom door suddenly swung open. Chloe glanced over and saw Nicholas standing calmly by the door. She became slightly choked up and instinctively explained, "I didn't mean that, I was rough cut." Nicholas showed no hint of surprise and simply said, "I know, having navigated the entertainment industry for years. How could he not know that Chloe had been rough cut?" Chloe was momentarily stunned and felt slightly relieved, only to hear Nicholas immediately warn, "But I hope you don't get arrogant. Even if you advance through cleverness, don't use Katerina as your raft." With that, without waiting for Chloe's response, he turned and walked away. Chloe momentarily froze. She could hardly believe that Nicholas still cared, even now, about how she had completely outperformed Katerina with her acting yesterday. The tight string in her mind finally snapped with a sharp pop. Oddly, she didn't feel like crying at all. Her heart felt hollow, as if the name Nicholas had been carved out from her chest. Chapter 8. From that day on, the online harassment directed at Chloe only intensified. Chloe showed no reaction, as the production team's director had already reliably sent her the film script. Half a month later, Chloe received another notification from the production team. The next scene was a duet, and each actor had to find a supporting partner. Chloe approached several actors but was rejected by all of them. The day before shooting, Chloe was on set and had just been rejected again. Her brows furrowed in frustration, when the director's voice suddenly came from behind. "Can't find a supporting actor? I have a solution." Startled, Chloe turned to see the director pulling Brandon forward. "What do you think of him?" Chloe was surprised, but looking at Brandon's strikingly handsome face, she made up her mind immediately. "I'm honored. But Brandon, are you willing?" Brandon met her gaze, a flicker of an unspoken emotion passing through his eyes, and said quietly, "I can." The next day, the show began recording. This time, Katerina performed first. Chloe watched from backstage. Katerina invited Sam, a well-respected veteran actor in the industry, and together they performed a deeply moving family drama. However, The veteran's masterful acting made Katarina's contrived tears seem insincere and detached. Chloe withdrew her gaze and looked towards Brandon, silently cheering him on. "We can do this." Brandon glanced at her, his tone calm yet quietly reassuring. "I've never lost in my life." Before long, it was Chloe's group's turn to take the stage. When Brandon's strikingly flamboyant face appeared on the big screen, Chloe could clearly hear the audience's sharp intake of breath. Today, they were performing a scene from the classic romance film In the Mood for Love. It was the final farewell scene of two lovers, bound by social conventions and moral constraints, who cannot be together. From the very first second, their performance gripped the audience's hearts. From Chloe, playing Su Lijun, saying to Brandon, playing Mr. Zhao, "I thought I was the only one who knew," to Brandon delivering that classic line, "If there was one more ticket, would you leave with me?" The live audience was quieter than at any previous performance. Only when Chloe and Brandon held hands and bowed did the audience suddenly erupt into prolonged applause. Nicholas watched silently from the stage, unaware that his hand had unconsciously gripped the armrest. After a moment, the host invited Katarina's group back onto the stage. "The voting channel is officially open. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Voting is now closed." The audience scores were released quickly. Chloe received 367 votes, while Katarina received only 271. Next is the live judges voting. Each judge's vote counts as 50 audience votes. The judges were deeply conflicted but ultimately made their choices. "I choose Katarina. But not because Katarina's performance was exceptional this time. I'm judging the overall impact of the scene." Teacher Sam's acting was truly superb. Although Chloe performed well, she still couldn't surpass the original play. "I'm choosing Katarina. I like Chloe." In her eyes, I genuinely saw love, something that no amount of technique can replicate. Chloe is a naturally gifted actress. Among the 4 judges, 2 had chosen Katarina, 1 had voted for Chloe, leaving only Nicholas's vote remaining. Whoever he votes for will advance. Chloe instinctively clenched her fists, a fine sheen of sweat forming on her palm. She stared intently at Nicholas, seeing him pause thoughtfully before meeting her gaze evenly. Chloe truly gave an excellent performance. "But I still choose Katarina." As his words fell, Chloe's suspended heart finally dropped, only to be utterly shattered. Her eyes instantly reddened as she turned to look at Brandon. After a long pause, she said simply, "Sorry. This is your first loss." At that moment, the stage speakers suddenly roared to life, and the host loudly congratulated Katarina on advancing, the audience erupting into cheers. Then, the host turned to Chloe and said in a low voice, "Unfortunately, Chloe, your journey on Actors, Please Take Your Places ends here." Chloe had never imagined she would be eliminated by Nicholas himself. Only when Brandon gently wiped the tears from her eyes did she realize she had been crying. Chloe quickly wiped her tears away, forcing a light tone, "It's nothing. Let's go." The two walked off the stage side by side to attend the final rehearsal. As they stepped outside, they saw Nicholas, his face heavy with gloom. Brandon furrowed his brow slightly, then softly said to Chloe, "I'll leave first then." Chloe nodded silently, watching him go before turning to Nicholas. Nicholas's tone was cold and displeased. "Who is that man?" Chloe met his gaze calmly. "His name is Brandon. He's my supporting actor for today, and my friend." Nicholas's brow suddenly knit into a frown. He immediately warned, "I think you'd better be careful about your words and actions. Don't forget, you are a married woman." Chloe suddenly found it somewhat ironic. She truly had no strength left to argue with him. So with a self-deprecating smile, she said, "I know myself very well, but I wonder if you do." Clearly, he himself was also a married man. Nicholas's expression instantly darkened. "Nonsense." He frowned and turned away, leaving only that sentence behind. Chloe fixed her gaze silently on Nicholas's resolute retreating back, never before so vividly aware. It's finally over, her competition, and her marriage with Nicholas is finally coming to an end. 2. Chapter 9. After leaving the production team, Chloe threw herself completely into filming the short drama. Half a month later, Song of Longing wrapped. After taking the wrap-up photos, Chloe heard the director sigh. Time really flies. The production cycle for short dramas is short. Song of Longing will be released next week. Whether we can pull off a comeback depends on this moment. Chloe smiled and said, when you become famous, director, be sure to remember to cast me. The director left excitedly, and Chloe turned to Brandon beside her, casually asking, after wrapping up, are you planning to rest or keep filming? Unexpectedly, Brandon shook his head and replied honestly, this is my first drama. And also my last. My brother wants me to quit the industry and return to work at our family company. Chloe was somewhat surprised but did not ask further. Brandon then took out a business card and handed it to her. If you ever need anything, you can contact me. Chloe took the card, looked down, and was taken aback. On it was boldly printed, Vice President of Vortex Group, Brandon. Suddenly, Chloe recalled, isn't this one of the investors backing the movie she's about to film? Still surprised, Chloe looked up and simply said, all right, see you when fate allows. As soon as she left the crew, she received a message from the director. I've already bought your ticket for the finals. First to City A, then take the cruise bus to the countryside. Okay. After replying, Chloe had only one last thing to do. Before leaving, she needed to get the divorce agreement in hand, but as the finals drew near, Nicholas suddenly grew busy. Not returning home for several days, nor making a single call. Unable to bear it, Chloe called Nicholas, but no one answered. She had no choice but to go to his studio herself, where the assistant said, Nicholas is in the rehearsal room rehearsing the final scene with Miss Katerina. If it's urgent, you can go find him yourself. It was only then that Chloe realized what Nicholas had been occupied with these past few days. She stepped into the rehearsal room and saw Nicholas rehearsing with Katerina. His usually stern expression was now softened, filled with deep emotion as he gazed at Katerina. No matter who is beside me now, my heart belongs to you alone. Having said that, he pulled Katerina into a firm embrace. Katerina responded with equal passion, as if they existed in a world of just the two of them, leaving no space for anyone else. Chloe remained silent, the divorce agreement in her hand crushed into wrinkles by her grip. At that moment, Nicholas looked up and saw Chloe standing at the doorway. He immediately released Katerina, a fleeting panic flashing in his eyes. Then he furrowed his brow and said to her unhappily, do you really have to make me sign this now? Can't it wait even a moment? Chloe blinked and calmly handed him the documents and pen. If you sign, I won't bother you anymore. Nicholas flipped straight to the last page without even glancing and signed it, adding in a heavy tone, you'd better mean it. Chloe smiled. All right, I mean it. Seeing Chloe turn and leave without a moment's hesitation, Nicholas immediately darkened his expression and carelessly tossed the documents aside. A rare flicker of irritation crossed his mind. He looked at Katerina and said, let's go as well. As Nicholas and Katerina left, the cleaner came in to tidy up. She picked up the documents Nicholas had tossed aside and skimmed over them, her eyes gradually widening. The day of the actors. Please Take Your Places finals was also the day Chloe left the city to head southwest for a closed set shoot. Chloe watched the finals live broadcast on her mobile phone in the airport lounge. As expected, Katerina and Nicholas smoothly claimed the championship. The production team showered them with countless ribbons, and under the dazzling lights, they embraced tightly. The camera focused on Nicholas, who, before a nationwide audience, spoke each word deliberately. Katerina, this honor is meant for you. At that moment, the airport announcement sounded, attention passengers. Boarding for the flight to City A has now begun. Chloe thought for a moment and made one final call to Nicholas. He seemed to have just stepped off the stage. His voice still trembled slightly. Is something wrong? Chloe said quietly, congratulations. Nicholas's reply was sharply cold. Katerina won the championship. Not me. If you want to congratulate anyone, it shouldn't be me. Chloe paused for a moment before saying, that's not the kind of congratulations I meant. What I mean is, congratulations on finally being able to live the life you want from now on. Nicholas looked puzzled. That makes no sense. Clutching her mobile tightly, Chloe spoke to herself. I've already left the house key by the entrance, and took out the trash from the house. I also asked your assistant to remove your studio access permissions. I finished writing your healthy meal plan for next month and left it on the table. Your ties. At that moment, All the words she wanted to say to Nicholas spilled out in one rush. But Nicholas was too indifferent to listen and hung up immediately. Chloe's unfinished words faded on her lips. At last, she sighed. It seemed their ending was without even a single goodbye. Chloe then unlocked her mobile phone, blocked and deleted all of Nicholas's contacts, and powered it off. Half an hour later, beneath the vast blue sky, a bright white passenger plane glided by, leaving a trail of contrails. At the same moment, a trending topic replaced hashtag Katarina Champion hashtag and took the entire internet by storm. Nicholas and Chloe, secret marriage for 5 years. Chapter 10. Outside the studio, Nicholas hung up Chloe's call, then glanced at Katarina beside him with a smile. Let's go, my champion. Katarina pursed her lips into a smile, her eyes still shimmering with excitement. The two walked out through the side door, but after just a single step, they were stopped by dozens of reporters. Katarina smiled proudly, assuming the reporters had come to ask her how she felt after winning the championship. She flashed what she believed was a beautiful smile toward the countless flashing cameras. But to her surprise, in the next moment, all the cameras turned to Nicholas. The lead reporter's gaze was as greedy as a wolf's, loudly demanding, "Nicholas! You and Chloe have been secretly married for 5 years. The moment Katarina divorced, you divorced Chloe as well. When exactly did you two get together?" Nicholas frowned, his expression immediately darkening. He fixed his gaze on the reporter, eyes heavy with menace. "Do you understand that spreading rumors carries legal consequences?" Unfazed by the threat, the reporter sneered. "Playing the good guy? Your divorce agreement with Chloe has already leaked all over the internet." Nicholas faltered. A flash of panic surged within, but his face remained unreadable as he said, "I don't know what you're talking about." Then, assertively, he pushed through the reporters with Katarina and headed toward the nanny van waiting outside. After getting into the car, the reporters still lingered outside, tapping on the windows and calling their names, desperate to get them to come down. Inside the car, Nicholas's face darkened as he opened Instagram and saw the divorce agreement bearing both his and Chloe's names rapidly circulating online. He had no memory of ever signing the divorce papers. But strangely, the signature on the document was unmistakably his. From the very moment the papers were leaked, they spread like wildfire. Nicholas's fans and Chloe's fans quickly descended into heated exchanges in the comments. But Chloe's smaller, less vocal fanbase was soon overwhelmed. "I don't believe Nicholas really married Chloe. This must be something Chloe deliberately arranged. Come on, if it were fake, wouldn't your biggest fans have reacted somehow? Maybe they've known about it for a while but have just been keeping it from you fans." "I don't believe it." "Nicholas, if you come out and deny it, then we'll believe you." "Nicholas, come out and say something, whether it's true or not. You owe us a response." Nicholas frowned deeply but closed his mobile phone. The next moment, seeing Katarina looking at him with concern, he slightly relaxed his furrowed brows. "Don't worry, I'll handle this." After saying that, he calmly instructed the driver, "Take Katarina home first." Katarina clenched her hands tighter. Instinctively, she didn't want to go home. Now that the truth was out, she might finally advance for real. Since her return to the country, it felt as if an invisible barrier had settled between her and Nicholas. Outsiders said Nicholas still loved her, but only she knew the truth. Between Nicholas and her, there was nothing but purity. Nicholas. Katarina's breath quickened for a moment as she gazed at him tenderly. "Since this has come to light, why don't we?" But she never finished her sentence. Almost at the same moment, Nicholas interrupted her. Nicholas's gaze rested calmly on her, the familiar tenderness she knew. Yet beneath it lay his usual undeniable resolve. "Katarina, go home obediently. Leave everything else to me." Katarina's heart skipped a beat, unable to argue. She could only nod with pale lips. "All right." Nicholas averted his gaze, not daring to look at her again, but he clenched the mobile phone in his hand even tighter. When he returned home, a faint trace of anxiety stirred deep within Nicholas's heart, so subtle that even he barely noticed it. But when he pushed open the door and saw the empty room, his expression darkened immediately. Chloe's belongings had vanished completely overnight, as if she had never existed. A disappearance of this magnitude couldn't have been a spur-of-the-moment decision. The only possibility was that Chloe had planned to leave all along, but just hadn't told him. At that moment, Nicholas felt his heart beginning to falter, yet his face revealed nothing. He calmly finished inspecting the house, then stood by the dining table, his eyes resting on the nutrition meal notes lying there. This is Chloe, the last trace left in this home. Chapter 11. Nicholas opened it on a whim. The familiar handwriting caught his eye, yet for the first time, it sparked a strange feeling. Chloe's notes meticulously detailed what he could eat and couldn't, almost to an obsessive degree. The notebook's pages were slightly yellowed, as if someone had caressed them countless times. Nicholas looked on faintly, his tightly wounded heart finally easing just a little. Chloe had gone to such lengths for him. How could she possibly bring herself to divorce him? Nicholas, reflecting on this, casually closed his notebook, walked into the living room, sat down on the sofa, flipped through Chloe's contacts, stared intently for several moments, and then, for the first time, took the initiative to call her. The call was answered after 30 seconds. Nicholas's voice suddenly grew colder, and just as he was about to impatiently question her as usual, he said, "Chloe, you owe me an explanation." "Nicholas, when are we going to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get a divorce?" On the other end, Chloe's voice was muffled by crackling static, making it difficult to hear clearly. Nicholas froze in place, his mind going completely blank. Only when Chloe sighed impatiently did he suddenly snap out of it, disbelief flooding his heart. Is the divorce agreement online real? Even now, what else could confuse him? The divorce agreement was real, and Chloe really wanted to divorce him. Chloe gave a soft hum, but that simple sound hit Nicholas's ears like a thunderclap. Nicholas parted his lips. His breath faltered for a moment, then quickly steadied. When did I ever sign a divorce agreement? How come I didn't know about it? Chloe sneered softly, her voice fluttering as if her breath were brushing his earlobe. You forgot, you were the one who personally signed the divorce agreement in the rehearsal room. Nicholas stiffened immediately. The document, which he had never taken seriously, flashed through his mind. He had even left it behind in the rehearsal hall after signing it. So that's how it was. Nicholas closed his eyes, his expression turning colder. So you've wanted to divorce me for a long time? The other party was silent for a moment, then said, "Yes." Nicholas remained silent, slowly clenching his mobile phone as his gaze drifted through the floor-to-ceiling window to the outside. Have I treated you unfairly? He really couldn't understand why Chloe chose to divorce. When he proposed to her years ago, she was clearly crying, her face flushed red, and when she agreed, she could hardly speak. He still remembers that expression vividly, so he simply couldn't grasp how Chloe could one day leave him. Just as he expected, the call fell into a long silence. Nicholas, unusually calm, patiently waited for her reply. Maybe 30 seconds, maybe 5 minutes. When Chloe's voice returned, it was completely calm, as if she were speaking about something entirely unrelated to herself. That doesn't matter. Nicholas, I don't love you anymore. Nicholas froze in place, standing still for a long moment. Once Chloe spoke, it was as though all her reservations disappeared. She laid everything out completely and honestly. I'm sorry about what happened online, but it wasn't me who leaked it. I'll send you another copy of the divorce agreement later. This time, please read it carefully. Don't brush me off again. In 2 weeks, I'll come back. We'll meet at the Civil Affairs office. Goodbye. With that, Chloe hung up. Nicholas stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, golden dusk light pouring in, casting his shadow on the floor. He silently looked back at the home he once shared with Chloe, feeling a strange distance for the first time. It was as if, in an instant, he had lost something precious. He didn't know how long he had been standing there when a sharp ringtone brought Nicholas back to his senses. It was his agent calling. When he spoke, his voice was hoarse, almost trembling. What's happened? His agent was breathing heavily, hesitating before saying, "Have you checked Instagram? Chloe just posted there, confirming the divorce rumors." Chapter 12. Nicholas's Adam's apple moved uncertainly. At that moment, he was almost speechless. He silently hung up the phone and opened Instagram. It was only when he searched for Chloe's Instagram that he realized, despite being married to her for 5 years, He had never even followed her, and now had to rely on a search to find her divorce announcement. Nicholas's heart sank slightly. His assistant quickly opened Chloe's profile. The Instagram post she had shared 5 minutes ago had already become a trending topic. This was the first time in her 5-year career that one of Chloe's posts had received over 100,000 comments. At Nicholas, this is the first letter I've ever written to you, and the last. I have never regretted meeting you, nor loving you. I only regret that we couldn't make it to the end. Nicholas, when we got married, you apologized for not being able to give me a grand wedding. I told you it was all right, as long as you would love and respect me for life. Just as you promised in our vows, that was enough. But in the end, you only kept half that promise. Now I'm letting you go, granting myself freedom. Everyone. The end of my marriage with Nicholas has nothing to do with infidelity. Please stop spreading unverified rumors. I will not tolerate endless online abuse. If anyone continues to slander me, I will gather evidence and take legal action. The topic shot up the trending list. Bright red trending topics lining up one after another, all bearing the names Nicholas and Chloe. Hashtag Nicholas and Chloe's secret 5-year marriage. Hashtag Chloe's secret marriage for love. Hashtag Nicholas and Chloe divorce. Hashtag. Comments in the square surged wildly, as if gone mad. Nicholas apologizes. Nicholas fans apologize. The 5 years of online abuse towards Chloe is utterly appalling. Our Nicholas never meant harm. It must have been Chloe threatening Nicholas. Otherwise, how could he have married her? Maybe it's all fabricated by Chloe. Nicholas fans are truly terrifying. If I were Chloe, I would have been depressed long ago. Being insulted for 5 years by my own husband's fans, still going on shows, and even having former classmates try to steal him away. How could anyone not feel utterly crushed? At Katerina, are you the other woman? The person above just revealed the truth. Maybe Katerina interfered in their marriage and caused the divorce. At Nicholas, at Katerina, apologize to Chloe. Nicholas looked at everything with a heavy expression, his face darkening. Suddenly, the agent called again. Nicholas closed his eyes, held back his feelings for a moment, then answered. What should we do now? Deny it or admit it? The agent's voice hinted at a slight embarrassment, as they were clearly at fault, and no matter what was said, it couldn't calm the public's outrage. Nicholas, of course, understood this as well. His hand suddenly clenched tightly. Then, as if resolute, he abruptly said, admit it. His voice was calm but carried an undercurrent of turmoil. At this point, there's no need to keep lying. Nicholas thought about it rationally. There was no trace of lingering attachment on his face, only a cold, ruthless determination to minimize the consequences. Yet his hand gripping the mobile phone was so tight it had turned white. Finally, Nicholas hung up the phone and, inexplicably, suddenly looked at the wedding photo hanging on the living room wall. It had been 5 years. This was the only photo of them together. In the photo, they wore a suit and a wedding gown, standing shoulder to shoulder. Chloe's gaze toward him was so intense. He never doubted her love for him. But when did the love in her eyes begin to fade? Nicholas stared at Chloe's radiant smile in the photo, his eyes clouded with ambiguity. Half an hour later, Nicholas finally posted on Instagram. It was a message nothing simpler. At Chloe. Thank you for having met you. Chapter 13. Compared to Chloe's Instagram post, Nicholas's was far too simple. Netizens were unconvinced. Despite Chloe saying the divorce had nothing to do with infidelity, the phrase Nicholas cheating still became a trending topic. Some even spliced together footage of the three of them from actors. Please take your places. It was only after this comparison that everyone suddenly began to pity Chloe. Nicholas's double standards were glaring. Anyone with eyes could see the ambiguous relationship between him and Katerina. Katerina's studio quickly issued a statement, asserting she hadn't cheated and that her relationship with Nicholas was purely platonic. But the emotionally charged netizens refused to listen and all turned to insult him. The sweetness of the past has now turned entirely into knives stabbing at them. Inside Nicholas's studio, Katerina cried, tears streaming down her face, looking at Nicholas with grievance. Nicholas, everyone online says I'm the other woman. I've already lost several endorsements. If this continues, how am I supposed to keep acting? Nicholas sat in a chair with his back to her, his expression unreadable. The only sign was the intermittent glow of his mobile phone. Nicholas. Katerina sobbed, struggling to catch her breath. But Nicholas showed no response, unable to resist. She moved closer but first caught sight of his mobile phone screen. It was Chloe's Instagram page. Katerina's heart skipped a beat. All the words she wanted to say caught in her throat. An unbelievable suspicion suddenly surfaced in her mind. Nicholas, could he have fallen in love with Chloe? The thought was so terrifying that Katerina shivered involuntarily the moment it appeared. But she forced herself to suppress it. Impossible. Although Nicholas was indeed different now from before, she firmly believed that the only person he loved was her. Chloe had always been nothing more than a tag-along behind them. What right did she have to Nicholas's love? Katerina's expression turned suddenly grim, but she forced a smile and leaned in, saying, "Nicholas, now that things have come this far, how do you intend to handle the matter with Chloe?" Sure enough, the mention of Chloe finally stirred a reaction from Nicholas. Though he only furrowed his brow sharply, it was still better than his earlier helpless silence when she had called him repeatedly without any response. "I will divorce her." Nicholas snapped his mobile phone shut, his eyes darkening. "If that's what she wants, I won't stand in her way." A poor village in southwestern F, where even the internet hasn't reached. The only way into the village was by ox cart. Chloe sat on the front cart, while the film crew and others rode on the carts behind. After bumping along the uneven dirt road for several hours, Chloe could barely make out a few brown earthen houses. "Chloe, this environment is indeed rather harsh. This is already the best living environment we could find. If you feel anything's missing, I can send someone out to get it for you." The director followed Chloe into her room and spoke apologetically. Chloe gazed at the leaking roof, the bed made of yellow clay, and the wobbly chair as she sat up, a trace of surprise briefly crossing her face. She was genuinely surprised that the director could still find a place like this. "No need. As long as I can sleep. But please fix the door first." Chloe pointed to the wooden door with a hole in it, and the director immediately replied and went to fix it. The film she was set to star in was called Spring Flower, told from the perspective of an ordinary rural woman named Chun Hua, portraying the oppression of women under the feudal system. The script is quite heavy and weighty. The moment Chloe received the script, she had a strong premonition. She was certain this film would be her breakthrough, restoring her to her rightful place. Chapter 14. Before coming here, Chloe had already braced herself for hardship. She put down her suitcase and began to think about tidying the room, but everywhere she touched was coated with a thick layer of dust. Having no other option, Chloe found a basin in the corner, carried it outside to fetch water, only to open the tap and see yellow muddy water flow out. She stood there, feeling awkward. Suddenly, she heard a familiar voice calling, "Chloe?" Chloe froze. At first, she didn't recognize who it was. Only when she turned around did she realize with surprise. "Brandon? What are you doing here?" Brandon was always clean and neat whenever he appeared before her. But at this moment, no matter how much he cared about cleanliness, his white shirt was stained with dust, wrinkled, and disheveled. Brandon said nothing. His gaze fell on the basin she was holding as he silently stepped closer. "I do have water." He took the initiative to take it and led her to the neighboring house. Chloe hesitated, watching him go behind the house, skillfully pressing the water well. The water drawn up was crystal clear, shimmering with a halo in the sunlight. "I've already had someone check this well water. It's safe to drink." Brandon used a cup he had just washed nearby to hold a small amount, handed it to her, then began cleaning the basin she had brought. Chloe was stunned for a moment. Then she drank in silence, her gaze lingering on Brandon. His handsome knuckles were stained with yellow mud, but he didn't seem to mind at all. Only after rinsing them repeatedly did he fill a basin with water and, with his head bowed, carry it towards Chloe's house. Not a single word was spoken. Chloe silently followed him, and only when Brandon almost instinctively started wiping her bed did she suddenly startle, reaching out to press down on his large hand. "I'll do it myself." Their hands overlapped. Brandon's earlobes reddened. After staring silently for a moment, he let out a soft "oh" and released the cloth. Chloe avoided his gaze, wiping her hands as she spoke in a distracted, half-hearted manner. "What are you doing here?" Brandon stood quietly in the room, a flush rising on his pale face. I'm here to film Star and Moon Fairy Tale. Chloe paused, then turned to look at him. What? Suddenly, Brandon's eyes brightened, and his usually reserved nature gave way to an eager fluency when he spoke about celestial phenomena. Star and Moon Fairy Tale refers to the rare celestial event known as the lunar occultation of Venus. In simple terms, it's when the moon, moving along its orbit, passes between Venus and Earth, blocking the light from Venus. Only certain locations on Earth can witness this, and Village F is one of them. Chloe looked at Brandon's unusually vivid face, feeling a sudden stir in her heart. Now I truly believe you when you say that entering the entertainment industry was just a whim. She felt a twinge of emotion, her eyes smiling even more. I never expected that the vice president of Vortex Group's real passion would be astrophotography. Brandon was momentarily stunned. His black pupils gleamed, making even the sunset streaming through the back window seem dull in comparison. Because someone once told me that if, in this life, you don't even know what you truly love, then it's as if you never really lived at all. Chloe was slightly stunned, her heart suddenly pounding. In that moment, she even felt that Brandon resembled the faint stars scattered across the night sky, distant and flickering. Chapter 15. Chloe was dazed for just a moment before snapping back to reality. She keenly caught the implication behind Brandon's someone and smiled with understanding. I thought you came to check out our film, after all. You're our investor. I didn't expect this was your real intention. Brandon's eyes darkened once more, settling into their usual calm, detached expression. Maybe that's part of the reason, he murmured. What? Chloe didn't catch it clearly. She paused and turned to look at him, but all she saw was Brandon shaking his head. He pressed his lips together before picking up the basin, which had become murky after she washed several cloths. It's nothing. I'll get you a fresh basin of water. Wait here. Having said that, he didn't wait for Chloe's reply and walked off on his own. Chloe held back for a long moment before thinking, he really is a good person. After a day's rest, the filming officially began. Chloe was truly born for this evening's work. After changing into the local clothes, no one could have guessed she was once a polished and captivating major star. The moment the director called action, she fully became the film's protagonist. Chun-Hua. When the director called cut, she returned to being Chloe. Brandon stood quietly on a nearby dirt mound, watching Chloe. It was as if he was watching Chloe perform, yet also looking through her, seeing the girl from his memories. After a long moment, Brandon turned and walked away. At the same time, Chloe, sensing something, lifted her head to look toward Brandon, but saw only his departing figure. The director behind her noticed and began to gossip as well. You don't know him yet, do you? This is Brandon, the largest investor in our film and vice president of Vortex Group. I heard he was taken back to his original family when he was a teenager. Before that, he had been wandering outside. Chloe was startled. Instinctively, I wanted to ask more, but the words caught in my throat. Let's not gossip about other people's pasts. I have a scene that's causing some trouble. Could you help me take a look? Chloe changed the subject, and the director followed her lead, speaking at length about the script. But for the first time, she lost focus while explaining the plot, unable to help but glance toward Brandon. In the days that followed, Chloe seldom saw Brandon again. I heard he took some time to return to City A, and soon after, another building funded by Vortex Group was planned there. Only then did Chloe truly grasp the reality of Brandon's position as CEO. At the same time, the director of Song of Longing had someone send her a message. It premieres tomorrow. Remember to watch the first broadcast. Chloe wanted to watch as well, but there was no internet connection at all, not to mention watching the web drama. She hadn't logged into Instagram even once, and she had no idea how much Nicholas's situation had already escalated. When she thought of Nicholas again, her chest tightened with ache, but soon she pushed the feelings aside and threw herself entirely into filming. Before long, the day of Song of Longing's premiere arrived. Clutching her mobile phone, Chloe had wandered deep in the mountains for a long time before finally picking up a signal at the village chief's house. She sent out the pre-edited livestream announcement on INS, then closed her phone and left. She didn't look back, so she had no way of knowing. From the moment Song of Longing aired, its viewership surged explosively. Within 3 months, both its popularity and ratings far outstripped all other contemporary films and TV shows. On the day of the finale, a trending topic about it even rocketed to #1 on the charts. Song of Longing skyrockets in popularity, nominated for the Silver Flower Award for Best Drama. Chapter 16. When Chloe received the news, she was still shooting a chase scene for Spring Blossom. The story centers on the female lead Chunhwa's first act of defiance against her father's orders. She refuses to marry Billy, the village thug, and on the night before the wedding, she sneaks out of the house, planning to flee to the train station, but she is soon caught by her family, who chase after her wielding hose and hemp ropes. When Rita arrived at the set, she saw her stunningly beautiful star, now in tattered clothes, bruised across her face, running wildly through the night. She stood silently in front of the camera, and through the small screen, could clearly see every nuance of expression on Chloe's face. Chloe was born to be an actress. Rita gave a faint smile, the thought growing deeper in her heart. After the director called cut, Rita immediately hurried over, concerned, and reached out to wipe Chloe's face with a wet wipe. But Chloe pulled away. In the pitch-black night, her eyes shone with an astonishing brightness. "Rita, hold off on wiping for a moment. Let me see if this take passed." Chloe had been running all night, fine beads of sweat covering her forehead. Yet she went straight to the director, obediently listened to the entire scene breakdown, then wearily made her way over to Rita. Just as she sat down on the chair outside the set, Rita frowned with concern and walked over, draping a jacket over her shoulders while muttering complaints. "The conditions here are really poor. How about I get you an assistant? That might make things a bit easier." Chloe took a sip of water. The sweet spring water slid down her throat, finally easing the weariness deep within her. She glanced at Rita and teased with a smile. "An assistant? At my level now, I can have an assistant?" Only then did Rita remember the reason for today's visit. Smiling proudly, she said, "Not before. But things are different now, Chloe. Song of Longing has been nominated for the Silver Flower Award." For a moment, Chloe's mind went blank. By the time she registered it, tearful glimmers had silently welled in her eyes. "Really?" Rita nodded hastily, her tone edged with urgency. "I came today to take you back for the Silver Flower Awards. Go ask the director for leave quickly." Excited, Chloe hurried to the director. Once her leave was approved, the silly smile on her face never faded. Watching her, Rita suddenly felt a pang of bittersweetness. Chloe was like a child she had watched grow, from her debut at 20 to now at 27 or 28. Rita understood how much hardship had paved the way for every step she had taken. Now that a glimmer of hope had finally appeared, her excitement was no less than Chloe's. Rita watched her bounce and skip away, unable to help but offer a heartfelt prayer. From now on, everything must go smoothly, no more suffering from matters of the heart. At the Silver Blossom Awards ceremony, countless reporters camped outside the venue. Having learned that both Nicholas and Chloe would attend, they were the hottest names in recent months. No one wanted to miss this buzz. Inside, the venue was lively and bustling. Fans from every side gathered in corners, cheering for their favorites. Chloe wore a simple black cocktail dress, her softly curled hair resting by her side, her expression composed. One winner after another took the stage, and the cheers gradually swelled to a crescendo. The cast and crew of Song of Longing sat together. Although Brandon had quietly left the industry, he now sat beside Chloe in a crisp suit. "Do you think we'll win an award?" The director nervously clasped his hands, his gaze fixed intently on Chloe. Chloe nodded without hesitation. "Of course, we definitely will." The director's breathing finally steadied. For some reason, he trusted Chloe deeply. There was an inexplicable, compelling strength about her that put people at ease. Now, to announce one of tonight's 3 major awards, the Best Drama Award. The nominees are Our Life, 10 Sisters, and Song of Longing. Please welcome the presenter to announce the winner. The host unexpectedly called forward the presenter for this award. As the lights brightened, the person who appeared was Nicholas. He wore a sharply tailored dark blue suit, the white shirt buttoned to the very top. His jawline was precise and cold, his aura as distant and unapproachable as ever. Nicholas stood before the microphone, slowly opening the envelope in his hands. Chloe couldn't read the complexity in his eyes. She only clenched her palm quietly. The next moment, Nicholas's gaze seemed almost telepathic, precisely finding hers through the crowd. Their eyes met sharply. Then, Nicholas lowered his gaze first and, calm and steady, said, "The winner of the 2025 Silver Blossom Award for Best Drama is The Song of Longing, Chapter 17. As Nicholas's steady voice rose, the cameras immediately focused entirely on their table. The director, mouth agape with a stunned expression, Brandon, the cold male lead flawless even under 4K cameras, and Chloe, the female lead, smiling perfectly. The moment these three appeared on camera, the entire audience erupted into cheers. "Brandon, Brandon, baby Brandon, you're the best. Mommy loves you. Brandon, look at the camera. Here." Brandon blushed until his earlobes turned red. He instinctively looked at Chloe, but seeing her smiling eyes, he suddenly choked up, turning his head awkwardly. He whispered, "I'm already 25. Why do they still call me baby?" Chloe's smile deepened slightly, "Because in the eyes of those who care for you, no matter how strong you are, they want to protect you." Brandon was momentarily stunned, then nodded silently. Then Chloe lifted a radiant smile. "Let's go. It's time to go on stage to accept the award." The music instantly changed. Chloe slowly rose from her seat and led the way. Brandon and the director, both socially awkward, trailed behind, their eyes fixed and cautious. Wherever Chloe passed, all whispers ceased. The actors instinctively held their breath and watched her. For a moment, the entire world fell silent. The crowd hushed from restlessness to stillness in just a second. The next instant, the camera sharply focused on Chloe, capturing every detail, from her radiant features to her slender neck, her softly curled long hair, and her delicate waist. She was breathtakingly beautiful. When Chloe stepped onto the stage and took the trophy from Nicholas's hand, in that very moment, the venue once again descended into complete silence. Everyone looked at them with eyes full of gossip, as if craving to see something more. Before today, Nicholas had already heard from various sources that the Best Screenplay Award was likely to be given to Chloe. He had intended to decline the award ceremony, but for some inexplicable reason, he ended up accepting the role. Perhaps it was because since Chloe's Instagram post 6 months ago, she hadn't appeared before him again. Not even the divorce she once mentioned had progressed. Not even slightly. All of this pushed him forward. He wanted to know how Chloe was doing now and whether her words about divorce were just talk or truly meant. There was even a place deep inside where he quietly felt a flicker of relief. Perhaps Chloe had already regretted it long ago but didn't know how to tell him. So she simply avoided him. Nicholas had spent the past 6 months lost in thought. During the day, he could numb himself with work, but at night, when he returned to that cold home, no light shone for him anymore. No one brought him a warm meal, and no one slept by his side to warm his often chilly left arm with their body heat. On the left side of the bed once lay a woman. For 5 years, every single day, he had fallen asleep soundly beside her. It wasn't until one day she vanished without a trace that he suddenly came to his senses. It turned out that someone had long since become a part of his life. CHL. "Chloe, congratulations." Nicholas struggled to speak and, in front of everyone, stepped back behind her, clutching the heavy trophy. Chloe saw Nicholas again, her heart swept by a turbulent flood of emotions, as if trying to bring all the buried feelings to the surface. But in the end, she restrained herself. "Thank you," she said this, choosing to see the past as simply the past. But now, she was ready to move forward into the future. Chapter 18. When they left the venue, all three had changed out of their suits and evening gowns. The director was the least concerned about being seen from the front, so he wore nothing, no accessories, just his bare face. Brandon hadn't wanted to wear a mask either, but since everyone backstage kept asking for his autograph, he had no choice but to put on a baseball cap and mask. Chloe kept it simple. Despite being just as striking, she only wore a woolen hat. Once her makeup was removed, the three of them linked arms and left together. After stepping off the stage, Nicholas headed straight to Chloe's dressing room. Many people stopped him on the road, wanting to talk. Usually, no matter how much he disliked such interactions, he would patiently engage with them for a while. But now, there was something urgent in his heart that he was eager to act on. His already cold expression seemed even more distant at this moment. "Excuse me, please." Nicholas squeezed through the crowd and reached the door of Chloe's dressing room. unusually short of breath. After thinking it over for a long time, he finally remembered they hadn't discussed the divorce yet, and having that reason to see her suddenly put him at ease. Nicholas reached out and pushed open Chloe's door. Chloe. But his steps stopped at the doorway as his gaze swept the room. The person he wanted to see wasn't there. Only Rita remained. Muttering as she packed Chloe's things, she just runs off like that. Not even afraid of being caught on camera. She was talking to herself. But when she turned, her eyes met Nicholas's gloomy face, and she stiffened suddenly. Nicholas. Rita's expression shifted instantly. Then she furrowed her brows deeply and said bluntly, "What are you doing here? Begging for peace? Or trying to brainwash Chloe again?" Nicholas's face immediately darkened, his voice turning cold. "When have I ever brainwashed Chloe? Never?" Rita smiled knowingly at him. "If not, would Chloe have followed you blindly for nearly 7 years without expecting anything in return? Being toyed with like a fool? If not, would Chloe have given up so many promising roles just to keep you company, and still not let me hold you accountable? If not, would Chloe, an only child who never even lifted a finger at home as a child, have learned to cook for you and prepared your meals for 5 years on her own?" Rita's gaze was so piercing that, with just one look, Nicholas was left utterly speechless. Only after hearing what she said did he finally begin to realize that Chloe had been carrying so much on her own these past 5 years. He had grown so used to her kindness that he failed to notice how her love had quietly faded away until she turned to leave. And he suddenly felt a sense of disquiet. Was it that he was unaccustomed to her leaving? Or unaccustomed to her care? Nicholas froze, standing still as if Rita had seen through every hidden thought in his heart. He couldn't help but clench his fists and took a step back. "Since Chloe isn't here, I'll leave first." He spoke hastily, and as he turned to leave, he added a few words that only made things worse. "I truly had an urgent matter to discuss with her. She blocked me. So please, help me tell her. I will wait for her at home until she returns." As Nicholas closed the door behind him, the sharpness in Rita's expression vanished completely, replaced by a deep sense of emptiness. No one wanted to witness Chloe and Nicholas reaching this point. But if Chloe kept enduring this with Nicholas, she was even less willing to watch. So, if someone has to be the villain, let it be her. Rita made up her mind and took out her mobile phone to send a message to Chloe. "Have fun, no going back to the hotel until dawn." Chapter 19. Late at night, the city lights shone brilliantly, with only a few scattered stars lingering in the sky. At the remote seaside, the cold, salty seawater slowly rolled white waves onto the shore. Chloe and Brandon set up 3 chairs on the beach, each taking one and lying back, staring blankly at the night sky. The director, as the host for the evening, had gone off enthusiastically with his mobile phone to a nearby store to buy beer and still hadn't returned. In the quiet, Chloe's mobile phone suddenly rang, the sound strikingly clear. She lowered her head, glanced at it, smiled softly, then closed the phone and put it away. Brandon turned his head to her and gently asked, "Who is it?" Chloe shifted into a more comfortable position, closed her eyes, and answered, "Rita, strange, telling me to really enjoy myself." Brandon chuckled quietly, the low laugh drifting into Chloe's ear, producing a subtle tickle. She couldn't help but look at him once more. She had thought she was somewhat resistant to Brandon's strikingly clear features, but on closer inspection, she was even more captivated, especially his clear, shallow eyes, resting beneath long lashes, crystal clear like glass soaked in ice and snow, cold and pure. With just a gentle blink, they shimmered with ripples of light. Chloe was not usually one to care much about appearances, but at that moment she couldn't help being slightly captivated. Brandon surely sensed her burning gaze. The tips of his ears flushed quickly, even his neck reddened, and he lowered his head, his Adam's apple moving up and down. It was only then that Chloe came back to her senses, silently scolding herself before forcing a dry smile and looking away. "Ha! Where on earth did the director go to buy beer? Why is he taking so long?" Brandon softly hummed in agreement. Chloe couldn't help but steal another glance at him. The flutter in her heart lingered. Quickly, she withdrew her gaze, not daring to look again. At that moment, the director finally returned, carrying a box of beer. That's right, not just 1 or 2 bottles, but he came back pushing a whole box of beer on a trolley. 12 bottles neatly lined up on top. Chloe looked at the director in surprise and teased. Director, are you trying to appear in tomorrow's social news as a famous movie star drunkenly causing a scene? The director chuckled softly, pushed Brandon to the side, and hurriedly said, It's just a few bottles of beer. Low alcohol content, you won't get drunk. He rummaged through the box, then pulled out a huge shopping bag and emptied it out. Chips, sunflower seeds, duck snacks, edamame, and other little treats spilled out noisily, and even a bag of dried tofu rolled over to Brandon's hand. He picked it up curiously, but before he could read the label, the director snatched it away, tore it open, and pressed it into his palm. The spicy scent hit his nose sharply. Dried tofu with wine, the more you drink, the better it tastes. The director said something he'd heard somewhere. While opening a beer and glancing sideways at him, Brandon instinctively looked at Chloe, and seeing her eyes curve into a smile, obediently ate it. Immediately, tears welled up from the spiciness, a fiery heat blazing from his throat down to his stomach. Water. Brandon tossed aside the half-pack of dried tofu in his hand, looked around, and realized the director had bought everything except water. The director laughed heartily as he approached, handing him a beer. Drink this, it's no different from water. Who knew you were so bad with spice? You're really weak. Brandon's face flushed, tears welling in his eyes as he stammered without saying a word. He took the cold beer and downed it in one gulp, taking several more sips before putting it down, his pink lips glistening with moisture. Chloe couldn't stop him in time and had to watch as he kept drinking, sip after sip, to quell the burn. Soon, a trace of intoxication flickered in his eyes. Chapter 20. The director opened several more bottles in a row. The autumn evening was already somewhat chilly, but he carried a beer as he walked toward the sea. Chloe was somewhat worried. After all, he had been drinking, but fortunately, the director was only walking along the edge of the rising tide, holding up his bottle and shouting at the moon. Hey, did you see that? I did it! Chloe froze. Before she could react, Brandon suddenly stood up beside her, raised his bottle, and shouted at the moon with the loudest voice she had heard from him since they met. Hey, did you see that? I did it too! He swayed unsteadily, then turned to Chloe with a dumb, silly smile on his face. Did you see? I did it. The suddenly light voice fell on Chloe's heart like a feather, leaving her momentarily at a loss for words. Fortunately, the director was still venting by the seaside, complaint after complaint echoing through the air. You always say I can't do it. Say I'm not capable. Did you see? No matter what I do, I'm the best. The director suddenly froze, the bottle in his hand dropping. Just once, be proud of your son. He's not as bad as you think. His voice deepened uncontrollably. In the moonlight, his footprints stretched behind him, soon trampled by new ones. The three sets of footprints overlapped, indistinguishable from one another. The director is amazing. Chloe cupped her hands around her mouth and shouted loudly toward the sea. The waves crashed and roared. As if responding, the director suddenly stopped and looked toward Chloe. On the other side, a drunken Brandon slurred loudly. The director really is amazing. He paused briefly, then shouted, Chloe is amazing too. I'm pretty great too. The sound drifted across the sea, carried underwater by the ceaselessly crashing waves. The director pulled back his gaze, tears glinting in his eyes, but stubbornly said, That's ridiculously cheesy. Why all the shouting at this hour? You're disturbing everyone. At that moment, he clearly forgot that he was the one who had started it. Chloe let out a quiet chuckle, then gazed at the sea surface and closed her eyes. Once all sight vanished, the entire world grew silent. Only the soft sound of footsteps in the sand beside her, uneven breaths, the relentless tide, distant fireworks, and the noisy crowd could be heard. All sounds gradually faded away, until only one clear sound remained. Chloe. Chloe opened her eyes to see Brandon's handsome face before her. His gaze was intense, and compared to his usual self, his drunkenness made him seem even more docile. Why are you calling me? Chloe could clearly hear the beating of her own heart within her chest. Brandon smiled softly at her, parted his lips to speak, but was suddenly grabbed by the director, who clapped a hand on his shoulder. Keep drinking. The three of us must not leave until we're utterly drunk today. Rare confusion flickered in Brandon's eyes. He reached out to hold Chloe's hand, only to be cruelly pulled away. I don't drink. Liar! I just saw you. You secretly drank 2 bottles all by yourself. It was the spice that got me. Liar! It was just a pack of dried tofu. How could it be that spicy? I'm not lying. Liar! The director grabbed the bottle opener and suddenly popped open a new bottle between the three of them. White foam sprayed from his fingers, drenching him as he yelled in surprise. Oh no! I forgot I just shook the bottle. In the hazy night, gentle moonlight bathed the three of them endlessly. The night stretched on, ample time for the three of them to reveal all their hidden thoughts. Chapter 21. The next morning, when Chloe rose from bed, her throat felt bitter and raw. Sis? She stepped out with a troubled look, only to find Rita sitting solemnly on the sofa, which made her heart skip a beat. Rita slowly raised her head, her face unnervingly calm. Reporters caught you drinking last night. Chloe froze. In an instant, the fog of her hangover lifted completely. She tried to appease her, leaning close to Rita and saying, Sis, I didn't mean for it to happen. I really just lost control. Rita's expression shifted several times before she suddenly burst into a triumphant laugh. Couldn't hold back. Huh. She took out her mobile phone, opened Instagram, and placed it in front of Chloe. It's rare for a trending topic to be all in our favor. It's truly gratifying. Chloe froze and looked down. Several trending topics immediately drew her attention. Chloe Brandon's tender gaze by the seaside. The reporter's undercover photography skills were really impressive, capturing them as if for an art film's promotional poster. By the seaside late at night, the two exchanged sweet glances. Under the dim light, even their eyes seemed sweetened with honey. It's just, clearly, there should have been a director beside them at that moment. So why was only he cut out? Sure enough, the director's Instagram account in the comments section nervously flickered up and down. Marketing account, please respond to me directly. Why was I cut out? Is it that I'm unworthy? That I'm not a romantic drama? The comments below were full of laughter and teasing. Am I the only one who cares that last night the reporter followed Nicholas home alone, and the lights stayed on all night? I sent that even better. While he was agonizing in wait, our female lead has already started a new life. When Chloe's gaze landed on it, she suddenly faltered, and the faint smile that had appeared drifted away just as quickly. Rita noticed something was off and quickly leaned in for a closer look. Feeling uneasy, she quickly looked away and whispered, "Aw, I forgot. Yesterday Nicholas did mention wanting to see you." Chloe raised an eyebrow. Only then did she realize that last night's message from Rita was because of this. She faintly curved her lips and said softly, "Sister, I know you mean well and care about me, but Nicholas and I are truly over now. This time I came back only to accept the award and to get a divorce." Chloe spoke calmly, with not a trace of hesitation in her voice. "We've more or less divided our assets. Now all that's left is to sign the papers and go our separate ways." Rita fell silent abruptly, after a long pause. She sighed and pulled her into an embrace. Cutting away dead flesh is painful, but for the sake of new life, we must endure this pain. Chloe, your future is destined to shine. Leaving Nicholas is the best decision you've ever made. Chloe closed her eyes, resting in Rita's arms. I know. She knew that leaving Nicholas would be painful. It was tantamount to cutting away a third of her life. After the passionate love she once had faded, her scarred body inevitably had to heal. Chloe suddenly opened her eyes and, in front of Rita, took out her mobile phone and removed Nicholas's name from the blacklist. She took a deep breath and resolutely pressed the call button. After a few seconds, the call was answered. Nicholas's hoarse voice came through, as if he hadn't slept all night. "Chloe, But Chloe quickly interrupted him. At this moment, she had only one thing she wanted to say. "Are you free this afternoon? Let's go to the Civil Affairs Bureau and finalize the divorce." Chapter 22. There was an immediate silence on the other end of the line. Chloe spoke bluntly, ignoring everything else. "We've been dragging this divorce out for too long. I was filming under closed conditions all this time and had no chance to deal with it until now. So now you suddenly have time?" Nicholas's voice sounded tense and mocking. "Or have you already found someone else and just can't wait to get rid of me?" Chloe's breath caught sharply. Nicholas regretted his words the moment they left his mouth. His throat tightened, and after a long pause he said, "Sorry, I lost control." Tears shimmered in Chloe's eyes. "No matter what you think, no matter what's being said online, I did not cheat." She paused for a moment, then said, "Since you have no objections, I'll see you at 3 p.m. Before Nicholas could say another word, she hung up first, then quickly blocked his number. Her actions were swift and seamless. Without the slightest hesitation, Rita watched silently and finally said, "I'll help you handle the reporters. If this divorce flares up again, it'll end up as a trending topic." Chloe came back to her senses and smiled sincerely. "Sis, I'm glad I still have you by my side." Rita's nose twitched with emotion. Then she stood up decisively and left. "Don't give me that sentimental nonsense. I'm not that kind of person." Only Chloe remained seated. After a long moment, she let out a soft laugh. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Civil Affairs Bureau. Chloe stepped out of the car wearing a hat and mask. From a distance, she spotted a familiar car parked outside the Civil Affairs Bureau. She paused briefly, glanced at the car, then walked inside. Soon, a tall man got out of the car, also wearing a hat and mask, and followed closely behind her into the building. Chloe, of course, knew Nicholas was right behind her. The familiar presence washed over her, leaving her slightly dazed, but she quickly dismissed the feeling and led him toward the window. What was even more poignant was that the place where they divorced today was right next to where they had registered their marriage years ago, the two windows only a few meters apart. Yet like two different worlds. There weren't many people getting divorced today, and soon it was their turn. The moment they removed their masks, the staff hesitated briefly. "Do you have all your documents?" Chloe nodded, took all the documents from her bag, and handed them over. The staff member passed the documents through the window. "If everything is correct, please sign." Chloe skimmed through quickly, confirmed everything was in order, and signed the divorce application. But the man beside her remained still, gripping the pen, lost in thought. He was indeed different from before today, dazed and unusually silent. "Sign it," she said. Chloe showed no hesitation. Even her urging voice was calm and steady. Nicholas finally lifted his head to look at her. This was their first eye contact of the day. His face was clouded with turmoil, his brows tightly furrowed. "Have you truly made up your mind?" Chloe, however, smiled faintly and tapped the desk at the Civil Affairs office. "Since we're already here, do you still think I haven't made up my mind?" Nicholas paused. His confused thoughts threatened to gradually consume his reason. He didn't even know why he had come. He clearly didn't want a divorce. But why was he unwilling to divorce? He didn't know. Nicholas instinctively clenched the pen, looked at Chloe's familiar face, hesitated, then gathered the courage to say, "Chloe, what if I said I don't want a divorce?" But Chloe laughed absurdly. There was clearly no mockery or any hidden meaning in her eyes. Yet Nicholas felt deeply suffocated. "Nicholas, don't you find what you're saying ridiculous? We weren't together because we liked each other, so wouldn't a divorce suit you perfectly?" Chapter 23. Yes, this marriage was never born out of love. At first, Nicholas only longed for Chloe's meticulous care. He had been abandoned by Katerina, and everything he once took pride in meant nothing to the people within Katerina's circle. For a moment, he couldn't tell whether it hurt more to be dumped or to feel ashamed of being mocked by people in that circle. In his 20s, Nicholas couldn't bear the frustration, so he climbed relentlessly, undeterred by difficult scripts or harsh filming conditions. As long as he could make a name for himself, he was willing to do anything, and Chloe was just a foolish girl who stayed by his side. At first, Nicholas thought he might lean on a new relationship to break free from the impulse. But after being with her, he realized it was simply impossible. Chloe was truly wonderful. She stayed by his side without complaint or regret, always ready to come when called and leave with a wave. But gradually, Nicholas grew accustomed to this kind of love. So when the agent teased Chloe, saying, "Chloe, are you always this kind to your ex-boyfriends?" Hearing this, Nicholas couldn't help but feel a surge of displeasure welling up inside. He was unsettled by the thought that she might treat others as well as she did him, afraid that one day she would cast such a gaze on someone else. Prompted by some hidden emotion, Nicholas quickly decided to marry Chloe. Once they were married, Chloe belonged only to him. At that moment, he could still fool himself. He didn't love her. But since Chloe loved him so deeply, he was supposed to take responsibility for her. He had been telling this lie for 5 years. Nicholas increasingly believed the truth was exactly as he thought, not that he couldn't live without Chloe, but that Chloe couldn't live without him. Katerina was an eternal wound in his heart. But wounds eventually heal. Chloe was his heart. Without it, he would die. But Nicholas realized this far too late. Last night, Nicholas sat alone in their bridal suite. Sitting there the entire night, he rehearsed countless drafts in his mind, waiting for Chloe to arrive, unsure of what he wanted to say. But time passed slowly, and he never saw the person he had been waiting for. In the early hours of the morning, that trending topic gradually climbed up from the bottom. Nicholas tossed and turned as he gazed at the photo, seeing in her eyes directed at others a faint trace of the expression she once reserved for him. He knew that expression all too well. After all, apart from him, no one truly understood what Chloe's look of affection looked like. But the more familiar he became, the more his heart ached. Has Chloe fallen in love with someone else? He dared not guess, lost in restless thoughts all night, only to receive a call from her the next day. At that moment, his heart was suddenly clenched. Every breath, every emotion in his body pulled along by her. But after waiting the entire night, he received only one sentence from her. Let's go to the Civil Affairs Bureau and finalize the divorce. At that instant, Nicholas finally understood. He had completely lost Chloe, regardless of whether she had fallen for someone else. Chloe, if I sign, can we pretend none of the past ever happened? Shall we get to know each other again? Nicholas's pen tip touched the paper, smudging a large ink blot. Chloe was silent for a moment. She met Nicholas's nearly burning gaze and gently shook her head. There's no need for that anymore. Nicholas's eyes reddened instantly. He gave a self-deprecating laugh, pressing the pen down hard, and a messy signature appeared on the application form. Then he finally looked up, his eyes bloodshot. He said, "All right, as you wish." Chapter 24. 30 days later, Chloe posted a photo of the divorce certificate, accompanied by the caption, "A new beginning." Surprisingly, Nicholas's Instagram had nothing at all, as if he had decided to remain silent forever. Chloe was indifferent. She looked at the encouraging comments below and couldn't help but feel a warmth in her heart. Sisters, may your road ahead be full of flowers. Divorce is nothing to be ashamed of. Sister, you are very brave. So, is the Brandon thing true? You just stepped out of the grave of marriage, and now you're about to dive right back in? Chloe stared intently at this Instagram post. Her brows suddenly furrowed sharply, but she replied below. First, Brandon and I are very good friends. There is no romantic relationship. Secondly, after the divorce, I still have the right to fall in love again. Whether I do or not is my own decision. After commenting, she turned off her mobile phone, so she didn't see the subsequent posts on Instagram, which had become lively because of her comment. When Rita called, Chloe was packing her luggage, planning to return to the film crew. The situation was originally very favorable. Why did you insist on adding that comment? Chloe's heart sank. Only then did she realize she had acted impulsively. But thinking about Brandon's character, she felt she was not wrong. Rita, it's fine. This trending topic will only stay on the list for a few more hours at most. It's no big deal. She had just finished offering words of comfort when she suddenly heard Rita exclaim sharply on the other end of the phone. Oh my God! Chloe's heart skipped a beat. She put down what she was holding and hurriedly asked, "What's wrong?" Rita's voice was filled with surprise. Why didn't you tell me that Brandon's true identity is like this? She thought for a long moment but couldn't find a fitting word. So she replied vaguely, "Go see for yourself." Chloe gave a soft hum in response and quickly hung up. When she logged back into Instagram, she didn't have time to check her direct messages before she saw that the official Vortex Group account had reposted the comment she just made. Marrying the vice president of Vortex Group definitely isn't like marrying into a grave. Shortly after, Brandon officially announced his retirement from the industry. I, Brandon, hereby officially announce my retirement from the industry to assume the position of vice president at Vortex Group. All my contracts expired as of yesterday. Also, Chloe is my closest friend. The moment this post went up on INS, the entire crowd was stunned. That's the Vortex Group, one of the top taxpayers in the whole province every year. No matter how high Nicholas's standing is in the entertainment circle, he can't hold a candle to the vice president of Vortex Group. And his word's best friend felt like a sharp slap to those who were simply spectators. No one could ever again claim that Chloe choosing Brandon was like stepping back into a grave. That was clearly not a grave, but a fully fledged aristocratic family. Chloe's heart skipped a beat, and she quickly called Brandon. Delete this post on Instagram immediately. Brandon's breath hit the microphone, as if even the warmth was being transmitted through. Did I do something wrong? Chloe simply couldn't picture the vice president of Vortex Group as Brandon. To her, Brandon was just a younger brother who loved to act coquettishly without realizing it. Hearing his gentle words now, she couldn't bring herself to be angry anymore. I'm not saying you did anything wrong, but you're no longer just representing yourself, you also represent the reputation of Vortex Group. So you can't just appease her. Chloe held back for a long time before saying that word out loud. Even so, that was exactly how she felt. Chapter 25. Brandon chuckled quietly. Chloe, however, couldn't stop noticing her cheeks flush. Why are you laughing? Brandon hummed softly without explaining. Only asking, when are you heading back to the set? Chloe hadn't expected him to switch topics so quickly. The question circled in her mind once before she belatedly replied. At 3 in the afternoon. Brandon hummed softly and said naturally. Then let's go together. Chloe paused, as if she had just realized something, and asked, is Star and Moon Fairy Tale going to appear? Yes. Brandon's voice grew gentle. It will appear within a month. That day. I want to talk to you. Chloe's heart skipped a beat. She could only reply, okay. When Brandon came downstairs to pick her up, Chloe was still deciding what to wear, never once thinking that no matter what she wore, stepping back into that place would feel like being buried under yellow earth. Unable to suppress her longing, Chloe was on the phone with Brandon while trying on another outfit. Right away. Just wait for me another 5 minutes. I'll be downstairs soon. Brandon was easy to talk to, and even seemed to enjoy it. No rush. Take your time. I don't mind waiting in the car. Though she said that, Chloe didn't really keep him waiting long. Shortly after, she came downstairs carrying several bags. Experience has taught that in places like this, it's more convenient to drag a few bags than to lug around suitcases. After a series of mishaps, Chloe was so exhausted when she returned to her small house that all she wanted was to collapse onto the bed. Brandon quickly stopped her with sharp reflexes. Wait a moment. I'll help you change the pillowcase. Without saying a word, he skillfully took her floral 3-piece set from the cabinet and quickly set about making the bed. He really didn't seem like the son of a wealthy family. Chloe watched, feeling her ears flush. What was that? How did Brandon know better than she did where her things were? Chloe's intuition told her that something had been subtly affected without her realizing it. But for now, she hadn't quite figured out what. So, she worried for only a moment before happily brushing it aside. After Brandon finished, he took a call and left. Before leaving, he reminded her again, remember what I said. See you on the hill at the Star and Moon Fairy Tale event. Chloe's face flushed deeper. She turned away and muttered vaguely, got it. Only then was Brandon satisfied and left. Chloe sat dazed in the same spot for a long time, unsure of what she was thinking, letting out a few absent-minded laughs. Then she quickly snapped back to reality, slapped her burning cheeks hard, and told herself, no more thinking. She took the script out of the suitcase, silently urging herself on. Hurry up and memorize your lines. Stay focused. With such constant urging, she finally settled into the rhythm of memorizing the script, and time flew by before she knew it. Then came the steady cycle of filming, resting, filming, and resting. Days passed one after another. Brandon rarely visited, usually just dropping by briefly, bringing her some food, then leaving in a rush. Once, Chloe overheard people whispering gossip. Brandon really is dedicated. His main job is already demanding, yet he still finds time to pursue her. That's true devotion. Exactly. Recently, Vortex Group launched a new venture. With such a hectic schedule, he still spends an entire day visiting Chloe. If that's not true love, what else could it be? Only after hearing this did Chloe belatedly realize the truth. So, what exactly about Star Moon Fairy Tale made him come by repeatedly to check things out? The most important reason was that he wanted to see her. Chapter 26. By this point, Chloe felt too embarrassed to continue insisting they were just friends, mainly because what Brandon did was practically no different from what a boyfriend would do. They even made a point of calling each other every night, regardless of whether they had anything to say, as if hearing the other's voice was the only way to make the day feel complete. Strangely, Chloe seemed to have begun looking forward to that day's arrival, until one day, when Chloe arrived at the set. She saw many people carrying large and small cameras. Each camera appeared more expensive than the last. In that moment, Chloe suddenly realized that the day had come. The thought churned in her mind all day, twisting her thoughts into a tangled mess. Even others noticed and teased with a smile. "Why do you keep staring at the hill? Are you interested in tonight's celestial phenomenon too?" Chloe shook her head, hesitated, then nodded. "I'm not interested in astronomy, but I promised someone I'd watch it with him." Oh! As soon as those words were spoken, everyone around began teasing with lighthearted, harmless jokes. "I bet it's Brandon. I also bet on Brandon. After all, this past year, besides Brandon, I really haven't seen Chloe have any connection with anyone else." Chloe smiled helplessly. "Please, this place has neither internet nor roads. Who else could I possibly be in contact with?" Without hesitation, the person said, "Didn't I say? Brandon. Once a week. More punctual than the weather forecast." Chloe's face instantly flushed, burning from the top of her head all the way down to the soles of her feet. "Don't say things like that." The man winked and said, "I understand. You two are just friends. But after tonight, whether you remain friends is hard to say." Chloe, embarrassed, turned away and said with feigned displeasure, "I'm not talking to you anymore. I've finished filming my scenes for today. I'm heading out. Remember to change into something nice." She had already walked several meters ahead but could still hear their gentle laughter behind her. She bit her lip and quickened her pace. As soon as she got home, Chloe dove into her wardrobe, rifling through clothes. This one didn't satisfy her, nor did that, and after a long struggle, she still couldn't make up her mind. In the end, since the night was growing late, she finally grabbed a white dress and slipped it on, barely revealing her calves. On a late autumn night, back in the mountains, the temperature had actually dropped quite low, but Chloe didn't even take a coat. She just walked out the door like that. As she climbed the hill, many photographers waiting to shoot stood nearby, each wearing a light jacket, cracking their knuckles as they eagerly awaited the sunset. Chloe glanced into the crowd, expecting to see Brandon among them, but surprisingly, he, who was never late, still hadn't arrived. Chloe withdrew her gaze and stood in the shade of a tree. The sensation of waiting was unbearable, so she shifted her eyes toward the setting sun. The fiery red sun slowly gave off its last warmth, dyeing the pure white sky. Chloe stared blankly, her limbs gradually growing stiff. The sun had already set, and the rare star in Moontail was unfolding before her eyes. But Chloe was in no mood to watch this wondrous sight. Instead, she kept looking around, hoping Brandon would suddenly appear from some angle with a camera in hand, then laugh and look at her. "Sorry, I'm late." But there wasn't. One by one, the people on the hill left, yet Brandon never appeared. "Aren't you leaving?" someone asked. Chloe pressed her lips together stubbornly and said, "The person I'm waiting for hasn't arrived yet." That person glanced up at the sky, sighed, and said, "Let's go." "He's not coming. Starry Moon Fairy Tale has already ended." Chloe's smile suddenly stiffened, as if a cold wind had swept through her heart. She lowered her head, gazing at the white dress she had carefully chosen, and gave a bitter smile to herself. Yes, it's over. Brandon didn't show up. Chapter 27. Having spent the entire night exposed to the cold wind on the hill, Chloe unsurprisingly fell ill. But since the film was already in its final stages, she had to bear it and keep filming. On the day of wrap, Chloe had just finished taking the wrap-up photos when she suddenly fainted. When she came to, she was in the town hospital, with Rita's anxious face by her bedside. "Chloe, are you trying to frighten me to death? You had a 39-degree fever and still refused to come to the hospital. Do you think your body is made of steel? Chloe smiled patiently, just about to sit up when Rita firmly pushed her back down. Although your fever has gone down, the nurse said you're not allowed to get out of bed until these 3 bottles of 4 fluids have finished. Rita rambled on, her worried face creased with even more furrows. You're all really a handful. You're like this. And Brandon is the same. Both of you were in car accidents. Yet you're completely focused on him. Rita's offhand remark struck Chloe like a bolt from the blue, leaving her mind utterly blank. She instinctively grasped Rita's hand, urgently asking, "What accident?" She was somewhat incredulous. Even her voice cracked slightly. Brandon had a car accident? Rita looked at her in surprise. You didn't know? She had just spoken when she understood. Right. You didn't have internet there. So naturally you wouldn't have known. Stop wasting time. Sis. Chloe was a bit anxious, determined to get an answer. Rita was tugged back and forth, finally pressing down on her hand. After carefully checking there was no mistake, she said with frustration, all right. I know you're worried about him. Can't I tell you now? It was just a few days ago. Brandon was rear-ended on the overpass. Just as someone was helping him, he quietly slipped away. He wanted to fly here to see you, but he fainted before boarding the plane. Chloe sat back down on the bed in a daze. She felt like laughing, yet also like crying. She laughed because Brandon hadn't lied to her. He really wanted to see her. She cried because she felt sorry for Brandon. So foolishly pitiful. Rita rubbed her face and her tone suddenly softened. After you're 4. Do you want to go see him? Chloe suddenly lifted her head, her eyes shining with an unprecedented light. I want to see him. Though she said it, Chloe faltered again when they reached Brandon's house. I'm going to Brandon's house now. But what if I run into his family? Rita snorted coldly, said nothing, and just grabbed her, pulling her forward. Isn't that better? That way, we won't have to meet the parents later. We'll get it all over with today. Chloe's face flushed again as she fidgeted awkwardly. Rita couldn't bear to watch, rolled her eyes, and went inside first. Wait for me. Chloe quickly called out and followed. Once inside, she saw a huge villa with enough space in the yard to plant a tree. Rita clicked her tongue twice. You really did marry into a wealthy family. Chloe didn't hear the remark. Her heart jumped to her throat as Brandon's butler opened the door for her. She was about to say hello when she noticed the butler freeze for a moment upon seeing her. Aren't you the girl from the young master's painting? Chloe blinked. What? The butler quickly recovered, though his smile grew a little deeper. It's nothing. Please, come in. The young master hasn't gotten up yet. I'll take you inside first. Chloe nodded politely. The butler then led them to an empty room. I'll go call the young master over. Chloe replied with a quiet okay, then turned her attention to the room. It was clearly an art studio, cluttered with various paintings. Some were finished, while others were merely rough sketches, all carrying a sense of spontaneity. Only one portrait was carefully placed in the very center, so that anyone entering would see it first. Chloe froze the moment she clearly recognized the painting, because the person in the painting was her. Chapter 28. Rita understood quietly, slipped out of the room, and gently closed the door behind her. Now, only Chloe remained in the room. She still stared blankly at the painting, her fingertip hesitantly brushing its surface. Every line seemed charged with the author's own feelings. A deep love, an unguarded love, a love so full it threatened to overflow. Chloe's gaze dropped to a corner of the painting, where a small pencil note almost went unnoticed. Will she like me? Suddenly, Chloe's vision blurred. At that moment, Brandon's feelings appeared before her eyes without the slightest hesitation. Chloe smiled slightly, pursing her lips, then picked up the pencil beside her and wrote another line beneath the first. She gave up, looked at it with satisfaction, and then withdrew her hand. Just then, the butler entered. The young master is awake. Shall we go sit in the living room and talk? Chloe nodded. Okay. Having said that, she calmly passed him by and walked downstairs. The butler squinted, glanced at Chloe, then at the portrait, and finally left, satisfied. When Chloe came downstairs, she found Brandon sitting upright with a serious expression on his face. Rita was clearly already engaged in conversation over there. Brandon seemed as if he had eyes in the back of his head. As soon as Chloe came downstairs, he turned around with a knowing glance, his previously dull eyes suddenly sparkling. It looked like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Chloe sat down opposite him, seeing the wound on his forehead wrapped in gauze. Her heart, which had been light moments before, grew heavier. Don't do this again next time. It was just one appointment, surely that's less important than your health? She couldn't help but sound a little sharper. Brandon didn't immediately nod this time but replied hesitantly. But I think this appointment is really important because I want to. He spoke, his gaze suddenly meeting Rita's curious eyes, and he immediately fell silent. No matter what, I still stood you up. Sorry. I broke my promise. Brandon's lips were still pale, yet he insisted on apologizing, which was simply irresistible. Chloe cleared her throat softly, rubbed her burning earlobe, then feigned indifference as she replied, "All right. No need to apologize." Her burning gaze bore into Brandon's face. "What was it you wanted to say that day? You can say it now." Brandon couldn't help but clench his fists tightly, avoiding her gaze as his heart pounded faster and faster. "It's nothing. Next time, I'll tell you." Chloe was genuinely disappointed but said nothing. Rita, standing beside her and missing out on the gossip, felt a sudden letdown and pulled Chloe away. "Then we won't disturb you. Take good care of your injury." Brandon hurriedly stood up, still wet, and watched Chloe in place. Even he hadn't realized how desperate his gaze was. Chloe forced a few dry laughs and then let Rita pull her away. "See you next time." Only then did Brandon nod, watching them leave. Just outside the villa, Rita let go of Chloe's hand and scolded, frustrated. "Why is this guy so cowardly? I'm getting anxious for him." Chloe feigned ignorance, shaking her head as she walked away. "I don't know what you're talking about." Rita watched from behind and let out a stifled laugh. "All right. Still pretending. Let's see how much longer you can keep this up." Regardless of others' opinions, Chloe still occasionally visited Brandon at his home. Only when she occasionally saw him handling company affairs at home did she realize, with surprise, how commanding Brandon's presence was in front of outsiders, especially in managing work. He was meticulous, completely unlike the brother she remembered, who would blush at the slightest thing. Chloe clicked her tongue in quiet amazement. The film Spring Flowers had no special effects during post-production, so after an intense 6 months of editing, it was finally scheduled for release during the next year's May Day holiday. Whenever Chloe attended roadshows, there was a strange sense of being in a different world. The journalists before her asked thoughtful questions. No one gave her trouble, and online praise for her grew steadily. It was as if the 5 years of online harassment had never happened. Chloe and Nicholas seemed as if they had never been together. Until one day, after an interview, Chloe had just finished recording and stepped outside to find a light drizzle falling. She was about to run forward through the rain when, suddenly, a black umbrella appeared above her head, shielding her from the downpour. For a moment, all was silent. Chloe looked up in surprise and met the owner of the umbrella, Nicholas. Their eyes met. Chapter 29. How long has it been since we last met? Chloe had actually lost count. The bitter truth was that she would never count that number again. Nicholas stood just a step away, his face as handsome as she remembered, but no longer stirring anything in her. In the silence between them, Chloe was the first to speak. "Long time no see," yet it was such a distant phrase. Nicholas instinctively clenched his fists, his voice seeming to hold something back. "Long time no see." Chloe nodded, greeted him, and was about to step aside, but saw Nicholas take another step toward her. "How have you been lately?" Chloe looked at him in surprise. She didn't think there was any need for them to catch up. "Not bad," Chloe replied curtly. Nicholas could see through her evasiveness. His heart clenched briefly, but then he noticed her expression suddenly soften. Then a sparkle lit up her eyes, and she called out, "Brandon, I'm here." In the next moment, she ran without hesitation from his side to another person. Nicholas turned around, stunned. He saw Chloe happily slip under Brandon's umbrella, animatedly talking with him. They didn't even spare him a glance. Nicholas's heart had only just begun to beat when, in that instant, it plunged into a deep abyss. He still had so many things he wanted to say to her, He wanted to say he wasn't with Katerina. He wanted to say how strange it was to run into her today. He wanted to ask if she was free later, if he could invite her to the movies. He wanted to say he missed her deeply. Do they really think they can get back together? He says he loves her, but all the belated words went unspoken, abandoned by her without a second thought. Nicholas could only stand in the rain, watching her walk away. The May Day holiday had finally arrived. Early that morning, Brandon drove to Chloe's building to pick her up and go see Spring Blossom. Chloe said helplessly, "It's my movie, so why are you more excited than I am?" Brandon buckled her seatbelt confidently. "Supporting your movie, do I really need a reason?" A warmth flickered in Chloe's heart, though it never showed on her face. "All right. You've convinced me. Let's go, driver." She caught Brandon smirking out of the corner of her eye, then replied, "As you command, my young lady." When they finally arrived at the cinema, Chloe was utterly stunned. No wonder, the cinema was packed, filled with people all there to see Spring Blossom. It was the first time Chloe couldn't even buy a single movie ticket. In the end, she left in frustration. The crowds during Labor Day are just too much. Brandon didn't think so. He casually said, "Maybe your movie's a hit." Chloe took it as mere comfort, never expecting it to become a prophecy. The release of Spring Blossom swept the Labor Day box office like a dark horse. Both the storyline and the cast outpaced competing films by several lengths. Numerous critics wrote extensive reviews, all awarding scores above 9 out of 10. Word-of-mouth promotion combined with online recommendations sent the buzz soaring. The final tickets for Spring Blossoms were unexpectedly sold out. When the Silver Flower Awards invited her again that year, she was no longer trailing behind the crew hoping to snag the Best Plot award, but had proudly been nominated for Best Actress. Chloe felt as if she were drunk, dazed when she received the nomination news, and then sat quietly in the audience at the Silver Flower Awards. Her mind was still foggy, as if she couldn't quite grasp what was happening. Even just being nominated feels worthwhile. She repeated this quietly to herself, determined to wear a flawless smile and sincerely congratulate the winner when the announcement was made. After announcing the winner, she smiled at the camera with a carefree, foolish expression. Chloe clapped a few times with no reaction, until a senior next to her nudged her. "Chloe, you are this year's Best Actress. Please go up to accept your award." Chloe seemed to come to her senses as if waking from a dream. Helplessly, she glanced around and saw everyone looking at her with smiling eyes, as if to say, "Leading actress, go to the stage meant for you." Chapter 30. Chloe didn't even realize how she had walked onto the stage. When the microphone was lowered before her and everyone waited for her speech, Chloe suddenly smiled. She raised the trophy in her hand and softly said, "It's never too late to start chasing your dreams." 1 year later, Capitol Airport. The crowd was bustling, as if everyone was waiting for someone to appear. Then a woman appeared at the gate, and the scene instantly erupted with countless fans screaming. Reporters raised their microphones toward the woman. "Chloe, now that you've won the International Acting Award, do you have anything to say? As the only one from this generation of newcomers to receive this award, what are your plans for the future?" But the woman, wearing sunglasses, looked exhausted, yet she still smiled. Instead, the tall man beside her answered the reporters' questions one by one. "She's been working around the clock for 3 years. The plan now should be to rest. It's the same now. We've spent over 10 hours on a plane and really aren't in the mood for interviews." Outside the crowd, 2 fans huddled together, excitedly gossiping. "Who is that? Chloe's manager?" "No, he's Brandon, vice president of Vortex Group." "Wow, what a good match. Are they together?" Hee hee. "You can't say that in front of Brandon. He was the one who said they were best friends back then. Now he's just shooting himself in the foot." "But what's really the difference compared to having a boyfriend?" "I don't know. Probably just the little quirks of young couples. Anyway, I don't get it. Just ship them and move on." The fans didn't have time to say more before clutching their banners and rushing forward. Brandon escorted Chloe all the way to the nanny van and left without a backward glance. "Where are we going now?" Chloe looked out the window and realized this wasn't the route home. Brandon stammered, avoiding the question, and only said, "You'll find out soon enough," which made Chloe glance at him once more. Finally some progress. He even knew to prepare a surprise for her. The car stopped inside a residential complex. Brandon nervously took Chloe's hand and led her upstairs. The elevator stopped on the 7th floor. When the doors opened, Brandon stepped forward to hold the door for her. "Go on in," he said. It was Chloe's first time here, and she was somewhat surprised. "How come I didn't know you had a new place here?" But before she could finish, the words caught in her throat. Before her eyes now hung a string of photo lights, each tiny star holding a photo of the two of them together. In the cozy bedroom sat the cloud sofa she had once said she liked, the custom table and chairs she had wanted to buy but was too late, and the strawberry plant she loved on the balcony. The rug by the entrance was her favorite SpongeBob design. Whose home is this? Brandon's? No, it should be their home together. Tears silently welled in Chloe's eyes. She looked back at him through the haze of her tears, only to see Brandon emerging from nowhere, holding a huge bouquet of sunflowers. "Chloe, I like you. I liked you from the very first glance. I want to see your sleeping face every morning from now on. I want to take walks with you after work. I want to go grocery shopping, visit the park, and go to the amusement park with you on weekends. Every single day. I want to be with you." Brandon's eyes reddened as he spoke. He stepped closer, his gaze almost reverent as he looked at her. "I don't want to be just your friend. I want to be your boyfriend." Chloe let out a soft laugh, her eyes fixed steadily on Brandon's face. Then suddenly she said, "Rita and I made a bet on how long it would take you to confess to me." Chloe shook her head. "I said, I don't know." Brandon's grip tightened slightly as he pressed on. "How long do you guess?" Brandon froze for a moment, his gaze dropping. Chloe stepped forward, tightly clasping his palm, meeting his suddenly brightened gaze. She smiled warmly. "But I know that if you don't say it soon, I'll have to make the first move." Brandon was utterly stunned by the overwhelming surprise, staring blankly as Chloe took a pair of rings from her pocket and held them up to him. "Will you be my boyfriend?" At 11 in the evening, Brandon suddenly updated a photo on his Instagram, which he had long abandoned after leaving the industry. The photo showed two hands, one large, one small, tightly clasped, with a conspicuous couple's ring deliberately placed front and center. Instantly, Instagram exploded. This long-known secret had finally been revealed. Countless people flooded the comments with blessings, and among them, someone teased, "Hey, didn't you say you were just the best of friends?" 3 minutes later, Brandon responded in the comments, "I regret it. Every day spent by her side, I selfishly wanted more."